Hi, Miguel.
Hey, how y'all doing? Everything okay? Good.
Yeah, so far so good.
All right, Wilkie, let me escort you out here. Stop share. Queen, yeah, I'll send them. All right. Okay, there you go, Wilkie. You should be good to go.
Okay, so I can share screen and do my thing. Okay, so far so good. Let's see. Can you see that, Anishka?
Yes.
Lovely. I just want to leave it there for a few moments so that when folks come in, you may want to just take down that information, my email address,
Okay.
my cell phone number, because we're going to be chatting, I understand, for a couple of weeks. So
Isn't that exciting?
yeah, absolutely. I certainly don't have any problems with that at all. I'm looking forward to it. So if you need to reach me for any reason, feel free to send me an email,
Yes,
a text
definitely.
message, anything of that nature.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll do a little more housekeeping when some more people join us.
Okay.
So if you want to, for the next few moments, you can just kind of read up a little bit or make yourself a cup of coffee, which I'm going to do. So I'll be right back.
Okay.
Don't go away.
I'm not going anywhere.
I'm just giving the others an opportunity to kick in.
Okay.
Aha, Leslie has joined us. Leslie, can you see us?
Hi, yes, I can.
Wonderful. Can you see Anishka?
Yes.
Okie dokie. That's great. Welcome aboard. We're just giving the others to get in from work, rush to their computers, sign in.
Okay.
Ask Cohen.
Good
Okay.
evening.
Hello, Mr. Cohen. Cohen, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks. How you doing, Mr. Wilkinson?
Just fine, just fine. Welcome aboard.
Thank you. That's good.
Owen,
How you doing?
how you doing?
Good, thanks. My cable just came back on. Not cable, current.
Okay.
Don't say that bad word because current has been rather unpredictable in the last few days for some reason.
Sure.
And I definitely don't want to have any current issues for the next 2.5 hours.
You got that right.
We don't need the headache, seriously. I mean,
No.
we have a backup plan, but that would be an inconvenience.
Mhm.
Absolutely. So welcome aboard, Cohen. It's nice to have a little testosterone in the room. Other than mine,
Oh,
if I have any left. When I look in the mirror these days, I'm like, damn, where did this white hair come from? A couple of years ago, when I was a little bit younger, I had black hair still until I was like almost, should I give my age? Anyway, over 40. That's all I'm going to say about that. My hair was still black. And then I'm thinking, man, I like salt and pepper here. I can't wait until a little white come in. So, you know, I can look like my father's hair used to look and other guys with distinguished salt and pepper. And then a few years later, I got salt and pepper. I'm like, yes, doggone it, salt and pepper. And then like the salt started overtaking the pepper. And so now here I am with mostly salt and I can't find any pepper. Unless I dig deep. Oh man, how time flies. How time flies. Okay, so let me see. Anishka is here. Leslie is there. Leslie is hiding behind something. Must be the camera. And Cohen is here. Leslie, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
I want you to know if I have to identify you in the lineup, I wouldn't be able to do it.
Yes.
I would?
Yes, you've seen me before.
Well, when you go from black to white, your memories.
Okay. Okay.
I know. I certainly do remember. I am just kind of pulling your leg. Feel free. I'm going to give the others a few more moments and then we're going to begin.
Okay.
Without them, they'll have to play catch up. Okay, somebody else is hooking up. Somebody Wallace. Who's that?
Aniska, what you guys did last week?
We went over Unit 5,
Mm-hmm.
and then she just recapped everything and said
Okay.
if we have any questions, we could always
Okay.
contact her, okay?
Okay, thanks. Because I emailed her and told her why I couldn't make it, but she never responded.
Oh, wow.
Speaking about email responses, for those of you who are here already with us, please take my information, my email contact, and my cell number. I'm always on my email. If you don't hear from me within 24 hours, I'm probably dead. Other than that, just send a note back and say, excuse me, did you get my email? Feel free to do that. I'm not offended if you do. Okay? By all means. Georgette. So who is Galaxy A20?
Hello, it's Shadal. I'm gonna change the name now.
Oh,
Sorry,
Shadal.
I'm late. Yeah,
No
sorry I'm late. I'll
problem.
change it now. Oh, thank you. Rename.
Hello.
Hi.
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 Who said hello?
This is Georgette.
Oh, Georgette. Georgette, I don't. Oh, yes. Georgette. Is that
Okay.
Georgette Russell?
Wallace.
Wallace.
Okay.
Why do I have Georgette Russell on this sheet? Did they make a mistake with that, Georgette?
I think they did marry me to somebody else.
It's my friend.
Because I'm a Russell, but I'm a Niska.
Yeah, I know. Mr. Russell. And then Georgette Russell. Yeah, I think somebody was.
Oh, Wallace.
That should be Georgette Wallace.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I'll just put a line.
Thank you, baby.
So,
Take it from me.
Wallace here. Okay. Welcome aboard, Georgette. Please take the information down for me. My email address and my cell number.
Okay.
Have any questions?
Okay, let me turn this audio off. This is a lot of noise.
Let me just say, folks, my sessions are going to be as interactive as I can make them. I guarantee you that I will not be yapping straight through the next 4 sessions. I'll be saying some things, and if you have any questions, issues, comments, examples, anything of that nature, feel free to just blurt them out. You don't have to put your hand up. You don't have to put in speak. Just start talking. That's how I want it to be. So that we can keep it as interactive as possible. Okay. Who is Mackenzie?
It's Shadal McKenzie.
Shadal. Oh
Yes.
yeah. Yes, indeed. Okay, welcome aboard, Shadal.
Thank you.
You see that information I have, my contact information?
I'm gonna try and get it right now.
So according to my list, we only
Okay, I see it.
got it?
Yes, sir.
Great. According to my list, we're only waiting for Colby, Ramming, and Higgins. Well, they're going to have to play catch up a little bit because we are going to begin. You may or may not know that for the next 4 sessions beginning today, we'll be trying to dissect some other aspects of the trust loan administration. How has it been so far, by the way?
A lot of information.
Yeah, a lot of information. Absolutely.
I find that I had to read stuff over and over for it to kind of sink in.
Yeah, unfortunately, that is how it's going to be. I wouldn't say it's like a calculus class is not that bad, but it is certainly, a set of information that you're going to have to reread. One reading will not do it for you.
No.
The first read is a must read. The second read is perhaps a note-taking, important points, jotting key things for most people, and then you go from there. But yeah, you will have to commit to it directly if you're going to be as successful as you want to be. Have you been given any information about your examination? What is it going to be like? What format?
No.
Okay, no, that's
No, I don't recall that.
okay. You probably would get that information when the final lecturer comes on stream. I think she is the person who actually sets the examination, Ms. Archer.
Okay.
I've been trying to see if I can get a situation going where each lecturer gets to prepare some questions for their particular area. I think that might be a good thing. We haven't been doing that in the past altogether, but I'll see if maybe we can do that this time so that you can get some questions that are unique to the person who presented the different units to you. That might create a good cross-section, okay, so to speak.
I think that'll be good.
Yeah, I think that would be good for everybody.
Yeah.
For the lecture as well, because we know the things we said to you and what we emphasized, what your concerns were a little better than with the previous or the other. So yeah, I'll see if I can pull that off without losing any skin.
Try hard.
We have your back, okay?
Yep.
Yeah, we got you.
I'll give it my really best shot and say that's what they want.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can get away with that. Okay?
Okay.
All right. So welcome aboard, everybody. As you know, my name is Samuel Wilkinson, your lecturer for the next couple of weeks. We'll be covering Unit 6 through 9, which, like all the other ones, very interesting cross-section of trust and administration. And I'll just be adding to your already dignified bit of information on trust law. Any trust officers in the group? No?
No.
No,
At
that's
least not. I'm not.
you don't have to be a trust officer to do this stuff, because this stuff has a whole lot of stuff to prepare in case you become a trust officer, if you work around where trust officers are, if you're in financial services at all, if you take on any job in financial services, if you become a trustee yourself personally, do you see? So one way or the other, you're not wasting your time nor your money. All right, so stay on board and make sure you do stage 2 as well, because stage 2 has some very key extensions to stage 1. That's why we do it in 2 parts, so that you can get the full McCoy. Okay, and if you haven't noticed that, you've already acquired a whole lot of unique information that a lot of persons who have not done this stuff do not know. And for those of you who work in financial services of any kind, you are already way ahead of the game. Plus, it has a whole lot of stuff that you can use in your personal life. So I always say that to encourage people to not become discouraged and finished everything and both. Okay. Again, feel free to.
Your screen isn't shared anymore.
Yes, I'm just moving that one to put something else of interest, I hope. Okay. If anybody joins us, I'll have to update them. Just getting my new document here to share a new screen with you. Well, I'm not going to share this screen. I'm just going to have a little chit chat first, and then I'll share what I have to share. Any questions so far about anything? I already said I'm going to try and get the examination muted a little bit so that you get a better cross-section of questions. Has anybody told you when your examination will be held?
No.
I think it's on the front of the manual, I think.
Yeah, it's on the
But the date, that was the previous date, unless you have an updated manual. My one had Saturday, September 5th.
Yeah, me too.
Let me see.
September.
It says the 10th on mine, Thursday, 10th of September,
Wow.
2020.
Thursday, 10th September.
Yeah.
Plus, when we initially got this, our classes were held for Saturday, but they changed it to Thursday.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Now you have an examination date of September the 10th?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I see.
Where
Okay.
will it be?
Where?
At the,
I think it'll be at the Institute.
okay.
Right.
And so many of you, we can provide all the space that you need so that nobody catches anything while you're doing your examination. That's important. And I think for all intents and purposes, we'll be usually following the normal protocols. Students will be sitting well behind each other and on the side where there's enough room so you can write it without worrying about if somebody coughs, what's going to happen to you. So you should be okay. Just thought I'd throw that in because we're still battling with COVID. Some people seem to think that it's over because they're doing all kind of weird stuff until they catch
I tell you, that's if we are not on lockdown, because this thing is getting crazy again.
Yes, it is. And
It's a second wave.
Yeah, it's scary.
And if we're not careful, as usual, the innocent will again suffer further.
Yes, yes.
Guilty. It's the same old unfortunate truth. Okay? Just like when you're fighting terrorism, terrorists have a tendency to live among their wives and children on purpose. So that when you come to get rid of their butts, you have to kill what? Innocent people, which they don't care. And they come back and say, you've killed our wife and children, I want to kill more of you. When in fact, they're living among them. If you want to be killing people, you can't live among your wife and children. They're going to die. They're going to become collateral damage. All right, and that's what we're having now with COVID, with a lot of people, a lot of innocent people like ourselves who are taking precautions. Some of us are going to be what? Have already been collateral damage. Okay, so I know, just thought I'd throw that in. I know you know that. All right.
Yeah.
So let me just say a couple of things before. Can you guys still see me?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. That's great. Because I have something that I pulled up that you can't see, and that's okay because this is not a document that you need to see. Units 1 through 5, you did already. I know you did a couple of key things in each of those units. I hope one of the things that you covered significantly enough, and if you don't remember, you go back and reread your notes, and it has to do with the 3 parties to a trust. It's so fundamental to the trust process. It'll be hell to finish the course and not remember the 3 parties to the trust. I'm sure that will come up in an examination question in some form or another. So what are the 3 parties to a trust? Anybody remembers?
The settler, the trustee, and the beneficiary.
Trustee and the beneficiary.
Absolutely. The settler, the trustee, and the beneficiary. Of course, it's important to remember what each of them represent. That indeed, the settler is the person who does what?
Set up the trust.
Who sets up the trust, absolutely. And once they set up the trust, do they have any interest in it at all?
If they reserve, well,
Yeah,
if they reserve.
In trust, they can reserve stuff to extend it, try not to make it a bloody sham trust. But anyway,
Right.
That's we probably have a whole bunch of sham trusts sitting in all kinds of portfolios. Under the disguise of being legitimate.
Beneficiary.
So that's another issue. But in a real trust would have a settler who is not involved in the trust. Okay, unless of course maybe as a beneficiary, maximum. Then of course we have the trustee, who is of course responsible for administering
the trust.
Absolutely, independently, without influence from the settlor, and without influence from biggity beneficiaries. Anybody knows why beneficiaries? They're not all biggity beneficiaries. They're not all biggity. I just used a Bahamian word to make a point. Beneficiaries, when they find out that they have assets or money held in trust, and they have a certain amount of money coming to them every year that they didn't work for, they just kind of inherit it. They tend to be a little persistent, picky, stinky, watching all the time, checking everything. They tend to do that to make sure that they get every single thing that's coming to them and anything extra they could get that isn't coming to them. Okay, so that group called beneficiaries, that's an interesting group that you'll discover more about. They're not as nice as they appear to be in the first unit. They could be all kinds of interesting things, including a nightmare for a trustee. As you'll see, if not in part 1, definitely stage 2, for sure. All right, so those are the 3 parties to the trust that we must always keep in mind if we're going to be thinking anything about trust administration whatsoever. All right, then we have the 3 certainties. Remember that?
Certainty of subject matter.
Certainty of intention.
Certainty of intention and
objects.
yeah, certainty of objects.
Object.
Without those 3 things, you cannot create a what? Valid trust. Okay? All 3 of them must exist within the trust instrument if it's going to be considered valid. Now, with regards to the certainty of intention, what exactly do we mean by intention?
That it is established that a trust, the intention is for the trust to be established. It is expressed that
Yeah,
trust,
you have
it
to.
is an intention of the settler to establish a trust.
Absolutely. The intention of the settler to establish a trust must be unequivocal, meaning clear, without a doubt. If there's any doubt and a lawyer finds it or a beneficiary finds it or whomever has an interest in busting that trust, they will find it. And they will say that this trust is not valid because we cannot establish intent. Very serious thing when it comes to a trust instrument. Sometimes so serious that a lot of times some persons don't pay attention to it, especially in modern trusts. We're just so busy trying to get trust documents out, instruments done like we're on a bloody vending machine or something. And so sometimes we forget that these certainties need to be certain. What about the certainty of objects? What does that mean?
That's the asset itself.
Is it asset?
It must be clear. It must be clear who the asset is for.
Yeah, it must be clear who the assets or the beneficiaries are going to be.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the key. Who is going to benefit must be clear. For example, if I say I leave all that I have in trust to Tingham, is that certainly satisfying?
No.
No. Who the hell is?
Tingham.
Absolutely. Make sure that the objects are clear and there's no doubt that the assets are being left or the trust is being left for X. Okay?
Right.
For my daughter. Well, daughter. Well, maybe that might hold up if you only have what? One daughter.
One daughter. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Or you might say, I'm leaving it for my child. Maybe that might hold up if you only have one child. When the child shows up from somewhere like, that's my daddy too. Well, we have a problem, Houston. Okay. So if you're setting up a trust or a will, they're similar in some ways. You must make your object clear. I'm leaving it for my daughter. Let's see, Leslie Rowe, so that there's no doubt whatsoever. So when some other daughters come up and say, I'm his daughter too, maybe, but he said for
Leslie.
Only. That's how specific it has to be. And then the final certainty, the certainty of subject. What does that mean?
The trust property.
Yeah, the trust property must be clearly delineated. If it's cash, it has to be, the cash issue has to be clear. If it's real estate, it has to be clear. If it's paintings, clear. Yachts, whatever assets are being left in trust must be clearly stated and legally transferred to whom?
And
the subject matter must be clearly stated and legally transferred to whom?
Beneficiary name?
Aha.
The trustee name.
Yeah, not the beneficiary, but indeed
the trustee.
Okay. Remember, the beneficiary will not be administering the trust.
Okay.
Beneficiary will only be benefiting from the
From the trust. Okay.
beneficiary wouldn't be doing a bloody thing except kicking back and enjoying the fruits of the settler's labor.
Yeah.
That's why when certain people die, they say, I'm not leaving anything for my children. Let them work. I'm leaving everything to
Charity.
charity. So when they die, we lot crying and gnashing up.
Gee.
He burned in hell, bastard. I did all that stuff when he was alive, and he still leave everything to charity. Like that. So some children are fortunate that their parents leave stuff for them, and other children, they're not so fortunate. Not to mention those of us whose parents had nothing to leave. How's that? That's a whole other issue. All right, so those three certainties are absolutely crucial and as important as the parties to the trust. I'm sure you had a discussion about the types of trust. There are many types of trust, but there are some keywords that you have to know, like a discretionary trust. Remember that
No,
one?
5 more COVID cases. I have a class. I can't talk right now.
There are 5 more?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
They're trying to distract me. Yeah, I mean, he just said they just got a notice. Says 5 more cases. I'm sorry. I thought it was on mute.
No need to apologize.
Ooh, 5 more. Oh, gosh.
No, yeah, that information is more important than this flicking trust information. The point I'm trying to make. I mean, we could do this trust like after we get the information.
I mute my
I'm
mic.
sorry.
I wasn't ready.
I'm so happy you said that.
Sorry.
I'm so happy you said that. Because now, if
Wow.
we're just talking about that crap. Now here we are,
Yeah,
5 more. So
it's true. I see the bulletin, the Ministry of Health bulletin.
I know it's true. That's why
Yeah,
I'm saying, you guys, don't take
124 now. 124.
And how much
drove-
active?
I
You see
drove
it?
to Peter Street today, and there was no one wearing masks. There was about 30 people in the street, and none. They were gathering around, and none had on masks.
Of course.
Oh my Lord.
In
So
the
it's
city,
20 active.
they're not wearing masks in the city, and police are not patrolling either.
No, they're not checking. No, police not
And
enforcing
I think
it.
that's our big problem.
I tell
Nope.
you,
Yeah.
there will
They're not
be
working in
a-
concert with one another.
No, there'll be
No, we too relaxed. We got relaxed.
definitely. And
Yeah.
many innocent people will suffer for those who are not following the rules.
Mm.
Children,
Yeah, it is 124.
elderly people, others.
And these children doing exams right now, 3 feet apart.
Only 3?
Only 3.
Well,
The lineup outside the class is 6 feet, but inside the class is 3 feet.
Yeah, 3 feet is okay as long as they don't get in each other's face. See, that's okay. If they're sitting behind each
But
other.
they have an issue. They're having some issues with that anyhow because a lot of the kids are not showing up. I guess the parents don't feel confident enough.
I'm right
Go
now
out.
contemplating right now letting my son do his exams.
Well, see, again,
Yeah.
this is what we mean by collateral damage. Maybe they're not showing up because they are afraid, or maybe they're not showing up for other reasons. Like maybe they don't feel ready to write an examination. They didn't prepare for an exam.
Yeah.
Hoping that
That
COVID
could be the
would
case.
stop the entire examination for this year.
What a miracle.
Oh gosh.
There's a lot of
You never know because if we lock down again, I don't know what kind of sense the ministry got to reorganize this and all that. It was such a task.
Yes. And these are all collateral damage issues.
Yes,
We
yes.
never have anticipated. That's what makes this whole thing so intense. Okay? There's no history. There's no precedence. Everybody is just winging it.
Hmm.
And we've seen the results in the Bahamas and all over the world because of the winging issue. This is all new and everybody's wondering what the hell to do. Try that. If somebody drop down, run over there and stand up. We trying stuff to see what will work. And then that's the problem. So this trust thing is our secondary concern. This COVID thing continues to be the primary issue. All right. So types of trusts.
Okay.
What is the difference between a discretionary and non-discretionary trust? Anybody?
The trustee would use, I'm not sure because I didn't complete the chapter, but I
Okay.
think it's a case where the trust for discretionary, the trustee uses his complete discretion, and non-discretionary is he's somehow influenced or his
Okay.
decision. I don't know.
Okay, that's warm enough. The first part is pretty much correct. The discretionary trust means he gets to use his discretion, hopefully his best discretion, a fair discretion, an ethical discretion, because discretion is a funny word, okay? But it does give you the ability to make the decision based on your own background and experience and what you think is right and best for a particular beneficiary or beneficiaries. The non-discretionary trust means that you have no discretion. The trust instrument will tell you what to do, and you
Exactly what to do. Mhm.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if the trust instrument says, pay my wife $10,000 every year, it doesn't
Okay.
matter how friendly the trustee and his wife may become. And she say, don't mind what he said, but that stinking 10,000, I need 20. And so the trustee
Okay.
somehow lets her persuade him or her to give her 20 instead of 10. And then all of a sudden, a beneficiary finds out, another beneficiary or somebody, and that trustee is found to be what? In breach of
Trust.
trust, which
Mhm.
means that the beneficiaries, if there are any others, or the courts will come down on them with a ton of bricks. Okay? So, if you are dealing with a non-discretionary trust where you have no discretion, follow the rules. Doesn't matter if you agree with it or not. You have to do what it says. Okay? Pay money only to Nazis. Doesn't matter if you don't like Nazis for killing the Jews. You still have to pay only to.
The Nazis.
If you don't like that, resign as trustee and pass it on to another trustee. You follow, folks?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if something goes against your conscience as a trustee, resign. Don't doggone complain and take the trustee fees and try to violate the terms and conditions of the trust. Make sense?
Yeah.
That's how it works. Okay. As you will see, if you ever get directly involved in trusteeships or in a trust environment. Then we have the discretionary. We know, do what you like, but try to be fair, and try to be ethical. What about revocable versus irrevocable? What's the difference there? Anyone?
The revocable trust can be revoked by the settler, and irrevocable cannot be revoked or canceled.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you very much. Couldn't say it better myself. If it's revocable, the settler can shut it down anytime he wants. If it's irrevocable, he cannot. Once the trust is established, no matter how he feels after that, no matter how many drinks, if he caught himself, if he was sober the next day, whatever, he's stuck. It is what it is. Okay. So if you're a settler and you're leaving a trust for beneficiaries, make sure that you are clear on what you want to do, especially if it's irrevocable, because once that is done, you cannot take it back. A lot of settlers establish revocable trusts for different reasons. There's been a lot of questions as to why these revocable trusts are allowed, but they are allowed, and they are not illegal trusts. They are valid. Okay. What is a trust instrument? Anyone?
The
Trust-
trustee.
Yeah, the trust deed. It governs everything that a trustee does. Anytime a trustee makes a decision,
Okay.
before he makes that decision, he has to go to the instrument to find out if the instrument allows him to make that decision or not. Do you follow? A lot of
Yeah.
trustees only read it once, and then 5 years later, they start winging it like they could remember everything. I don't need to go back to the instrument. I know what's in there. And so they go ahead and make certain decisions, and the beneficiary finds out, and they sue the trustee. Come to find out, the beneficiary finds a sharp lawyer, like, who's a sharp lawyer in the Bahamas?
Wayne Monroe, Ducille.
Ducille.
Yeah, like those guys. And they start picking the instrument to pieces and discover that the trustee has violated some clause in the trust instrument on page 332, subsection 2, subsection 7, and the subsection before that subsection. And then the trustee is in trouble. Okay? They lose the battle against the beneficiaries and they have to pay. But they're not paying out of trustee money, they're paying out of their own cash, their own trust fees, which they hate to do. Okay? Did you guys discuss trust classifications?
Sorry?
Trust classifications like an express trust, protected trust, secret trust, purpose trust, things like that?
It express trust.
I was looking at that
Okay.
class.
What were you told that an express trust is?
Where a settler makes a declaration that certain property is to be held in trust for certain persons or objects.
Indeed. The key with the express trust is it means that the trust instrument must be in writing. You may not know that a trust can be established verbally, though nobody would encourage you to do that who's in the right mind, unless you are stranded on Gilligan's Island and you're a witness and you just have to do it verbally. Other than that, every trust is expressed or written, period. Okay? What is a sham trust?
Is a trust document which is not a trust.
Yeah, a trust document, instrument that is being deemed to be invalid for whatever reason. A certainty is not in order, the parties to the trust are questionable, and so on. And so any of those things found to be out of order according to the trust requirements or trust law, then that trust can be deemed to be a sham trust and dismantled completely, shut down. And that's it. Okay. In one of your units, I'm not sure if it's 2 or 3, there are a whole bunch of different kinds of trusts and classifications of trusts. I don't envy you guys. Have fun learning all that different stuff. Don't fail to learn it. You don't have to learn it word by word, but do have an idea what these different things mean in case you have a question that comes up that requires you to at least understand by definition and purpose what they are. Okay, for sure.
Mr. Wilkinson,
Yes.
excuse me. Who deems it to be a sham trust?
Well, here's what happens. Sometimes beneficiaries might get information about the trust, either directly or indirectly, through the trustee in conversation, because sometimes beneficiaries and trustees establish relationships outside of the trust. Do you understand what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah. You know, like, for example, if a guy has a secretary or a girl has a guy has a secretary, girl has and he has a secretary, and then she's more to him than just a secretary. So as a result of that, she might get information outside of the normal courses of work. That happens too sometimes with trustees. Some of them get close to the beneficiaries, sometimes emotionally close, friendly, sexually, or whatever it is that causes the trustee to talk about stuff. And then the beneficiary gets information and they go back to the lawyer and say, oh, what do you think of this? And then the lawyer says, you know what, Joan? It sounds like a sham trust to me. And so you want to sue? And she's like, yes, I want to sue. And then things start to get stinky from there. Okay?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And so the lawyer starts picking the trust instrument apart to see if it meets the parties to the trust, the certainties, all the statutory requirements. If it and once it finds one clause out of place, it can then make a petition to the courts and say, look, this trust instrument, this trust arrangement is a sham, and here are my reasons. I put it to you, Your Honor, that this, and this establishes a clear path that this trust is a sham, and I ask that you dismantle it. And the judge will look at it, and if he's satisfied, he will deem the trust to be a sham and shut it down. Period. Okay. Good question. Important question. a question that trustees fight with all the time, because beneficiaries are always looking for ways to get more out of the trustee than even the trust instrument made provisions for, or other information that I just mentioned to you gets to the beneficiary. They start talking to other beneficiaries. They get together, gang up on the trustee. All kinds of things go on in the real world of trust administration. Okay?
Do you have a lot of instances where beneficiaries take trustees to court?
Many,
Really? In the Bahamas?
not necessarily in the Bahamas.
Oh, okay.
We don't have
Okay.
too many cases with Bahamas trust. When I say Bahamas, I mean most of our trusts in the Bahamas are not local trusts. You follow what I'm saying? When I say that, I mean they're not Bahamian trusts. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
They are trusts that are established by foreigners. We just administer them in this jurisdiction because our trust laws are far more accommodating to many international persons who want to establish trusts to protect their assets, to hide their assets, to administer their assets cheaper than in other jurisdictions around the world. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So,
But if a beneficiary has a grievance with a trustee and they want to take the trustee to court, it'll be here. They'll be guided by our laws, right?
if the instrument says that the trust is guided by our laws. So that's
So it can be established here, but guided by laws outside of the Bahamas?
absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Your governing territory can be whatever you want it to be as a trust
Oh,
set law
okay.
because it's being
Even though it's established here.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, much of the trust instruments that are established in the Bahamas has the Bahamas as governing law because our laws are friendlier than a whole lot of laws around the world. But that doesn't mean that a particular trustee cannot have another jurisdiction as the governing body. Governing means to have their concerns administered in the local courts of their choice. Okay. But yeah, many of them
One last thing, if it's established here and the governing law is elsewhere, the trust would take the nationality of that where the governing law is?
not necessarily. Okay,
No.
again, the details depend on the details in the trust instrument. You could have, for example, Cyprus, God forbid, as the governing body, but it's still a Bahamian trust. You follow? The governing body is really the jurisdiction that is established for any legal grievances. And people will choose that body depending on where they feel they get the best, they may get the best quote unquote deal if a legal issue comes up. You follow? So somebody might establish a trust in Cyprus and has the Bahamas as the governing jurisdiction. And so when a case comes up, it'll go to the Bahamas courts, and then the courts might say, okay, we declare that certain assets should be transferred to the Bahamas Trust. And I said, where are these assets? Well, the assets represent real estate in Cyprus. How the hell are you going to transfer that? You see my point? But I'm just saying these things, these conditions do exist. Whenever there's a challenge or a legal issue or legal action, it does create all these kinds of problems, oftentimes unknown to the parties until somebody decides to take legal action. And like any form of legal action, it's hardly easy to determine the outcome. That's why people always say, try to settle where?
In your jurisdiction?
Better than that, out of court.
Outside of court?
Yes, because once it gets to court, whether it's jurisdiction or anything else, the courts will ultimately decide. And once they decide, dog eat your lunch if it's not in your favor. Okay? Another good question. Because those,
I mean, not to do with trust. I want to ask a question.
absolutely.
Okay. You said with the jurisdiction. So with the the case with Bahama and Ismailian.
You mean Bahama?
Yes.
I'm just being facetious, yes.
He filed he filed bankruptcy outside of this jurisdiction.
Yes.
And we brought it back and ruled against him.
Uh-huh.
But it seems like he has now won the case. Just trying to figure out.
I know, tied in. He hasn't won the case yet, but he has won the right to have certain aspects of the case heard in the Bahamas that was not heard before, that allowed the jurisdiction outside the Bahamas to rule against him. He made an appeal, and he was granted the right of appeal to allow certain things to come to be heard in the Bahamas courts that should have been heard in the Bahamas courts at the time the case was being heard. Okay? For some reason, they were allowed to hide this information that should have been heard in the Bahamas court, somehow put away, not heard, covered, whatever the case might be, and which allowed the external jurisdiction to rule in favor of Bahama and against him. He made an appeal, and he was able to win the appeal. Now the court said outside, you know what? This matter should have been heard in the Bahamas. And depending on the result of that hearing, other interesting things will happen. Okay, so that's a good point.
Okay.
To court of law. And that's why I say it's still better to do what?
Settle out of court.
Outside if you can. But of course, we know Bahama issues can't be settled outside. Too big. Besides, the Chinese are not that nice of people to like settle anything outside unless they're going to be what? The total beneficiaries. Did you know that?
Okay.
As a matter of fact, it has been said that the Chinese knew all along, quote unquote, that nobody's going to be able to sustain that $3-point-something billion loan, and that they would get to foreclose on it and take Bahama, which was their original plan in the first place. And interestingly enough, it ended up in their hands. It was not supposed to be in Chinese hands. That Bahama is supposed to be in whose hands? The founder of Bahama, which is who? Anybody?
Ismailian.
Yes, that word, that name that people call no more. Like we forget what happened because we have short memories. He's the founder of Bahama. He's the one that got the original shareholders to put the millions and billions together to start Bahama. And then they went to the Chinese bank in the US to borrow the $3 billion to finish Bahama. But the Chinese always had a plan to make it impossible for them to service that loan so that they could, quote unquote, move in on it and take over the property, which they have done. And now Ismailian is trying to make a run back at it. And depending on what the Bahamas court rules, who knows what the outcome of that will be. We'll have to wait and see. Like any bloody legal issue. But that's a good point. What made you think of Bahama anyway? Hello?
I didn't hear you. Sorry.
Yeah, Leslie, what made you think of Bahama, the Bahama incident?
Because I know that he filed bankruptcy outside of this jurisdiction.
Indeed. Okay. And perhaps one of the reasons why he did that initially is because his loan was taken out outside of this jurisdiction with a Chinese bank in the United States, which was established by a U.S. incorporated lending license. Okay. Bank of China, whatever the heck they call themselves. Okay. But ultimately, the Chinese ultimate goal was to get that property, and they have it. And Ismailian's goal now is to see if he could upset the apple cart, and God forbid, maybe even try to get it back or give me my property back, you tiefers, or something like that. We'll have to wait and see. All right. Trustees have powers, true or false? Anyone?
True.
True. Where do they get their powers from? That was in one of your units, by the way, in case you don't remember. Where do they get their powers from?
The trustee,
I said it's just a trust instrument.
From where?
trust instrument, like she said, or
Yeah,
the
from the
trustee.
trust instrument. Yeah, they get their powers either from the trust instrument and or, anybody knows? Trust law. Ever heard of
Oh,
Oh,
the statutes? The Trustee Act?
okay.
The Trustee Act of the Bahamas. Did that come up in your first set of lectures?
Mhm.
Do you guys have a copy of the Trustee Act of the Bahamas?
Yes.
Good. You're not expected to know the Trustee Act of the Bahamas for your exam, but you are expected
That's
to
a
know.
lot.
It is, yeah. You can't learn it. You just deal with key aspects of it based on the section that you're doing for your particular units. But what you do need to know is that the Trustee Act, what year was it enacted? Anybody remember?
1998.
Yeah, that's a nice thing to know. And the Act is a statutory or legal document that governs the way that trusts are administered in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Now, newcomers to trusteeships and trusts, it is important to know that while these powers are given to an individual called a trustee by the instrument and by law, the instrument takes precedence first. Whenever a trustee decides to do anything as a trustee, he or she must consult the trust instrument first. If the trust instrument is not clear on what he needs to do, then he must go to the Trustee Act. You follow, folks? And if the Trustee Act is not clear enough, then the trustee has to go to before the courts and let the courts assist with making a decision, whatever that might be. Hopefully, somewhere between the instrument and the statute or the act, the trustee can solve his problem. But sometimes it's not that easy, and it goes all the way to the courts to make a decision. It's an important thing to know as a newcomer to this business. All right. It's also important to know that trustees may be individuals or corporations. Did you know that?
Mhm.
That means that if you have a friend like BFF, do we still say BFF?
Yes.
Because I have a tendency to say things all the time. If your BFF discovers that she has cancer,
I say ride or die.
yeah, you ride or die. Way to go. That she has cancer and she has 3 little children. They might come to you and say, I want you my best, my BFF. Therefore, I want you to be my trustee so that when I die, that somebody will look after my children. I have $100,000 life insurance and I want somebody to manage that money for my children properly without teeth in it. So they appoint you as their trustee because they trust you. That's where the word trustee comes from. Somebody you can trust. In the old days, hundreds of years ago, when guys were going out to fight wars, they would leave their assets in trust with the person they trust so that they don't come back. That trustee will then make sure that their wives and children are taken care of. You follow that? Pretty much the way things work now. When a settler has asked wealth, a lot, and especially lots of it, doesn't have to be a lot though. It could just be a $50,000 property, $100,000 life insurance, whatever you own. You don't have to be rich to establish a trust. Okay? And so you may ask your BFF to be your trustee, look after my children, make sure you use this money in their very best interest. And you can't just pick anybody to be a trustee, especially individual, because my grandma used to say that some people are crooked. Remember that word? Do we still use the word crooked? Okay, just checking. Okay, and so you don't want to leave any stuff in trust to like somebody you think is not trustworthy. Okay? That's why settlers who have millions in assets, they go to corporations, not individuals. They go to corporations because corporations are professional trustees, and if something goes wrong, the beneficiaries can sue them in the court of law, fine them huge amounts of money, and even have them incarcerated, depending on the violations. Okay, a lot of trustees are crooked too. Corporate trustees. They steal money from the trust fund all the time. They live off the trust assets, and they shouldn't because it's not theirs. They're only holding it in trust for home. Who are trustees holding assets in trust?
Beneficiary.
Beneficiaries, and so, but sometimes some trustees forget, and they start thinking, man, all this money around me, I might as well enjoy some of it for my own benefit and for the benefit of my family. These old filthy rich people having a ball, and sometimes, and so therefore they do things they shouldn't do, like partake in the trust assets when in fact they know they should not do it. Okay? Take your fees, and that's it. Everything else is there for the beneficiaries and the beneficiaries alone. Doesn't matter if you agree, if you like it, nothing. None of that matters. The only thing matters is that you do your job according to the trust instrument. All right, and then I think the final thing you guys may have talked about was the appointment of trustees. Can a trustee be under 18?
No,
No.
No. Can they be crazy?
no.
So,
No, the trustee must be of sound mind.
they're jurists.
Say it again?
You have to be a sue
They're
jurist.
jurists.
Yes, yes. Which means, what does sui juris mean?
Over 18 and of a sound mind.
Mine.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay. Juris is where the word jurisdiction comes from, in case you. Okay. All right. So that's kind of a nutshell on where you guys, what you guys were doing the last couple of weeks. I just wanted to make sure that all of it didn't fly out of your head, and I also wanted to make sure that if you haven't gotten to some of that stuff yet in terms of reading and preparation, that you don't wait until the last minute. Your examination is when again?
September 10th.
If I told you that's right around the corner, would you believe it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
don't procrastinate. Trust me.
Yeah.
Every day, set a study schedule, a reading schedule, whatever, and do it. Do not wait. It's not even August yet. See, like this. Oh man, it's not even August yet. To hell with it. You could do that, but you'll do that eventually at your own peril. All right.
Say peril.
Trust me on that one. I've seen it happen to
Yeah,
many.
there's a lot of information, Patron.
Of course. Yeah, I've seen.
And don't stick the first time.
For a long time.
Not second.
And then when the examination comes, they don't do as well as they wanted to do, and they say, "Oh, God hates me. The left hated me. This is my fate in life," and all that stuff. We come with all kinds of reasons. But don't do that. Okay? Just plan your study, stick to it, use your weekends wisely to study, and you'll be fine. Okay? Overdo it. That's the point. As long you could never do enough. So that when you walk in that room, any crap that comes your way, you could say, man, I looked at all of that. Don't try that. And if you fall short somewhere, it wouldn't be significant. And that's what examination preparation is all about. Okay? Because we all have to sweat to get through it. All right. So what I would like to do next is to get into our little discussion. What is the topic of Unit 6 anyway? Anybody know?
Appointment of trustees.
Yeah, the appointment of trustees, which involves all kinds of little crazy stuff. By the way, we've already talked about the things around the trustee for the last 30, 40 minutes or something. Now we're talking about how these trustees are appointed, the importance of those appointments and what they mean. Okay? Now, before I do that though, I believe I have a nice little video I can find, hopefully, that I was looking at just to warm you up a little bit before we get into our discussion. Let me see if I can pull it up. Okay. Share screen. Where's my video? Okay, there we go. Share. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Wonderful. I know he looks like a nerd, but he seems to know what he's talking about when it comes to trust appointments and so on. So let's listen to this guy for a little while
Okay.
and see what he has to say. He has some interesting stuff that will tie into our lecture and our discussion for today. So kick back and relax, don't go to sleep, and let's see what he has to say.
Has to do a video on the powers and duties of trustees, and so this is just really quite a short video just to give you some of the key ideas. You might have to go away and do some other research yourself, but hopefully.
Can you guys hear that? Can you hear it?
I could hear it.
Great. Okay, here we go.
After watching this video, you'll have the of equity and trust. So with that in mind, let's get started by thinking about. So what do we mean by duties and powers in the context of a trust? Well, whereas a duty is something that has to be exercised by the trustee, in other words, they have to do it, a power is something that can be exercised by the trustee. In other words,
now, folks, before we go on, let me just alert you to these two words because they are so fundamental to the trustee process, trust administration. Please always remember the differences between duties and powers. Even practicing trustees cross them over, sometimes on purpose, sometimes out of ignorance. I hope it's not ignorance. They're supposed to know. But whenever you have a duty as a trustee, you don't have a choice. That's the point. You must do it. So if you have a trust instrument that says, do this, that is a duty. You don't have a choice. On the other hand, trustees have certain powers, and these powers may or may not be exercised by the trustee. For example, the power of discretion. If you have the power of discretion, you may or may not exercise your discretion as you see fit. So please keep those two concepts in mind all the way through the end of your course. Duties means must, powers mean may. Okay? Very important for the trustee's life, as you'll see as we go further.
They have the option to not necessarily have to exercise that particular power. Now, there are a couple of caveats associated with this. So, whereas a trustee does have to exercise a duty, the way in which they do so is sort of up to them. And so they are given a lot of discretion in that sense. On the other hand, whereas powers are optional, for want of a better word, in cases of discretionary trusts, a power may have to be exercised by the trustee. In other words, that option is taken away. So that's definitely something to look out for. Now, this idea of discretion that we've talked about does also have its own legal meaning. So we'll try and explore that. In particular, the recent case of Pitt and Holt, which is really important.
Did you guys discuss any cases during the last couple of weeks?
Yes.
Okay. Can you think of one case that stands out?
Ray Watson.
Um,
Oh, sorry, say it again.
Ray Watson.
Ree Watson, yes. What do you remember from Ree Watson?
You have to pay for that if you want it.
I couldn't put it simpler myself. All right. So that means you are aware that part of being a trustee is, to some extent, you're not a lawyer. You don't have to walk around all the cases in your head. But as a trust student, you will be involved in certain cases. And the reason why cases are important, somebody asked me earlier, is there a lot of suing going on by beneficiaries? And I'm like, yep, a lot. They've been going on for centuries. Okay? The only thing that's happening now is that we have more cases in modern times, in the last 10, 20 years than we've had in the history of trusteeships. Okay? So there are a whole lot of cases going on out there. And the reason why you're confronted with cases, there's cases established what we call in law precedents. And so whenever a new case comes up, lawyers and judges and courts go back to previous cases and say, is this similar, exactly the same as the case we have before us? What decision will we take then? Should we use that decision with this one? And so on. So these cases establish important precedents that future cases are determined on. Okay, so that's just a little background information to further enlighten you. Because that's why you take the time to do this stuff, to inundate yourself with all this madness. All right.
It tells us that trustees do still have to act in good faith when exercising their discretion. They also have to act responsibly, reasonably, based on the facts. So this means looking at things like the type of trust that they're involved in. If it's something like pensions, then they should maybe only make low-risk investments, whereas if they're trying to make as much money as possible, then the trustees are probably more inclined to make high-risk investments.
Let me ask you guys something. Is anybody in this group a part of a pension fund at work?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
The reason why the issue of pension comes up with regards to the behavior of trustees, if many pension funds are held in trust by trustees, maybe including yours, and the reason why they're held in trust by trustees is so that your pension money is not held directly by executives of the firm you work for. Because executives of the firm you work for, sometimes if they have the money, they tend to commingle and do nonsense with it. And by the time it's time for you to retire, the company may have already gone under, or your pension money may have gone off somewhere in some foolish investment that somebody made at the board level. So a lot of pension funds are left with trustees to be held in trust, separate and apart from the company itself. And the reason why trustees are required to be careful with investments with pension funds, does anybody know? Why is a trustee required to be careful in investments with pension funds that they hold? Simply because the pension funds represent your money, employees. And if they invest as trustees in risky investments and lose a significant amount of your money, that means the trustee will have to replace it, or you may not get everything that you were supposed to get. A lot of people
Right.
don't know that. We're just busy working. You say, man, when my 20 years finish, I just want my money. Oh, I got something. Okay? All right, let's go.
Mr. Wilkinson,
All right.
Advice-
the insurance company that had closed down,
Which one?
I won't say,
Clico.
Oh, that one.
Clico, Clico.
Oh, that
Right.
dirty word. Excuse me, let me fix my shirt. Okay,
oh, sorry.
let it
sorry.
rip. No, I'm just being facetious because I've been using Clico as an example ever since it closed down, because I still want to know who authorized $500 million and where the hell is the money. But anyway, ask your question, Leslie.
Were they holding pension funds? They were holding pension.
Yes, holding pension funds, premium funds, life insurance funds, medical funds, all kinds of funds. And
So they invested all the money for that too?
well, all we know as regular folk in the Commonwealth is that $500 million was taken out of Clico and went out of the Bahamas somewhere.
Wow.
Some people call it an investment. Some people call it a strategic decision by the principals external to the Bahamas and some other. Oh, I can't use expletives in this. Anyway, Leslie and others, yes, that money included a lot of people lost tons of money in that deal. That's why the government had to come back and subsidize a whole batch of that deal with Clico so that people wouldn't lose everything they invested in Clico.
But aren't they still in existence?
Sorry?
Don't they still exist in another Caribbean country?
Sure, another what? Jurisdiction. But that
Yeah.
jurisdiction is what? External to the Bahamas, so we cannot successfully claim. Do you follow?
Yeah.
That's the problem. The real question is, though, who authorized that to send $500 million out of the country from an insurance company without making sure that the investments were secured first? Just like banks have to have a certain amount of capital to secure its base, then the insurance company should have a certain amount of money in place held by the insurance commission and company so that people's investment will not be lost. You can make an investment outside, but not with people's money. Hold that amount. We're not authorizing it. What is the amount you need to send out other than the people's money? 100 million. Good. Send the hell that out. But the rest stays. So my question is, who authorized that? It had to have been authorized by the highest officers in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Yet nobody was made to give an account. We still don't know who actually gave the okay. It remains a mystery, just like on AMC. Who done it? And we have no idea where the money went, except for speculation. None of it was ever returned. Everything CLECO is shut down. All the buildings have now gone into liquidation and being sold to other people to do business as they see fit. But CLECO, as we knew it in the Bahamas, is non-existent. All because somebody in the highest level of the Commonwealth allowed them to send. Good question. Hopefully when you guys take over the country, you will not do that kind of foolishness.
Who's in power then?
Thing I'm not.
Sorry. Okay.
I'll have to go back and see what year it is to tell you. Oh, you can find out. Just go
No,
Google.
I just being facetious.
Oh, do you remember who's in power?
No, I don't actually.
I'm not sure whether it was the PLP or the FNM, but you can always go back and find out when the CLECO thing crashed and see who was in power. Very easy if you're curious, okay? I think the PLP was in power at the time. But what made it even more interesting is when the PLP them came out of power and the new government came in, nobody followed through to see what happened. Who authorized it? We still don't know. Because everybody is, what do you call this? Tight-lipped. Ever heard that word?
Tight-lipped. Tight-lipped.
Yeah.
You're on a gag order.
Yeah, gag. You bad? Open your trap. Sorry. I had to get that out too.
Mr. Wilkerson, where you come from, man?
I ask myself that constantly, but that's $500 million. Do you know how much money that is?
Lie. Yes,
You know how many
it is.
people lost their life savings, their investment in medical
Yes.
plans, their investment in pension plans, all that crap?
Yes.
Okay. And nobody went to prison. Nobody was even made to give an account. We don't even have the name on names. And everybody's too afraid to raise it. Well, like the kids say on the block, mother sick dread. That's all I could say. Food for thought for you youngsters who are coming up. Don't forget, you notice my nice white hair? I'm going this way. I've been fighting this battle for 50 years now. I'm like flicking tired. Like, when are we going to start doing the right thing? When we start doing the right thing? So I'm kind of leaving some droppings for you guys to think about as you go forward with your lives. Hopefully you will exercise better and greater integrity and discretion. How's that? Doggone it. Not only as trustees and trust information and all that, but as individuals who are holding whatever the hell you're holding in trust. Oh, God. Okay. Can't afford to get a cardiac here either, because go to the hospital and catch what?
COVID.
And become the 125th? Okay.
Experts in particular areas. And that might be things like scientists or people like that, but more often than not, it's going to be thinking about things like accountants to consider which is the option which gives them the best tax benefits for their particular type of trust, and also lawyers for exercising some of those duties and powers as well. So some important points there when it comes to exercising discretion. And this is really important because while trustees don't have to give reasons for their decisions, the courts are only going to step in when the trustees have acted in bad faith.
Okay, now let me just say this again with regards to cases. Notice he made a simple but important point. Trustees do not have to give reasons for their discretionary decisions. That is a fact that is given, that is accepted in law even. That is accepted as a precedent as well in prior cases going back forever ago, okay? And for those of you who feel a little bit lawyerish and really involved in this stuff, and you should to some point, you go and find that case, Rebeloved, Wilkes Charity. Notice how far back it goes, 1851. That's the precedent to show that as far back as then, trustees were not required to give reasons for their discretionary decisions, okay? So if you're answering a question on the trustee and the decision making, and make reference to that, you can use that case, for example. And I'm just kind of giving you some insight. You don't need to be a lawyer. You don't need to know all the details of the case. You just need to know that Wilkes Charity has to do with trustees not giving information and not having to give reasons for their discretionary decision. And the same thing with the courts. Okay, the courts will only interfere when trustees have acted what? In bad faith. Case, Klug versus Klug. And so that's how you use cases. For you guys who are just getting started, simple, not complicated. You just have to learn in that context, know what the case is referred to if you decide to use a case reference. Whenever you have the opportunity to use a case reference, do it. If you don't remember case reference, don't jump off the bridge. It's not the end of the world. You just do it to the best of your ability. Do you follow me?
Yes.
Absolutely. All right.
But where they've not met that criteria that we just talked about in the case of Pitt and Holt, that comes from the case of Klug and Klug from 1918. And while they don't have to give reasons for their decisions, if they do decide to give reasons for their decisions, then that is something that can be looked at by the court when considering whether the trustees did act in bad faith or not. And that comes from Klug and Klug as well from 1918.
Because see, sometimes what happens, trustees act in bad faith, and some of them claim that they're not aware they acted in bad faith. As far as they're concerned, they acted in good faith. Beneficiaries don't believe that they've acted in good faith, and so they disagree with the bloody trustee. And then the trustee, then they have a back and forth. I acted in good faith, you acted in bad faith. Fine. That's the benefit gets a lawyer, Wayne Monroe, somebody said, or the other guy, and take it to court. And so since they can't agree as trustee and beneficiary, the court will make a decision. And once the court's decided, it doesn't matter what you think anymore. Carry your tail, put it between your legs, and go. That's how courts work. Okay.
What about the cases of bad advice? Well, in previous case law, mistakes which were based on bad advice, say for example, you want to find out which type of trust is going to give you the best tax advantage, and an accountant gives you bad advice that the trustee then acts upon. Well, in that type of situation, the trustee has essentially taken into account irrelevant considerations, and so that mistake could essentially be undone by the courts. And that comes from the case of Re Hastings Bass from 1975.
Okay, very important case, because there have been many legal positions with regards to bad advice in this particular instance, where the trustee has acted on the advice of another professional called a professional accountant. They discovered that the accountant was wrong, or the accountant was fraudulent, and therefore the trustee is not to be held liable because the bad advice was not the trustee's doing. It was the doing of another trusted professional who ought to have known better. Okay? Hastings Bass, very important and popular case.
However, this all changed thanks to the previous case that we mentioned with Pitt and Holt in 2013. And this says that a decision that's based on bad advice will still stand if the trustees acted with appropriate care and diligence. In other words, if the trustees have acted in good faith, then it's not going to be for the courts to get involved and basically fix that mistake for the trustees. So this creates a potential problem for beneficiaries who are trying to find a remedy. But there is perhaps an indirect remedy against the person who gave the advice. You might be thinking about something like professional negligence against the accountant in the example we described, or there may be a direct remedy based on mistake, but that's a little bit harder to prove, and so not necessarily ideal. So on the one hand, in this decision in Pitt and Holt, the courts have sort of upheld the decisions of trustees and allowed them greater discretion, but it's taken away some of the remedies available to a beneficiary if a mistake has been made. So let's get into the core of the duties and the powers as well. So we'll start with the duties. These are sort of the most powerful things, the things that the trustees actually have to do. And the first basic thing that they have to do is actually provide information to the beneficiaries. That can be things like documentation that relates to the trust or relates to the property. Basically, any relevant documentation or information has to be provided. That comes from Londonderry Settlement in 1965.
Londonderry is also another very important precedent, because sometimes beneficiaries seek to get information from trustees that are sometimes outside of their reach, but they want it anyway for one reason or another. The trustee is not obligated to do it by law or otherwise, but some beneficiaries are not happy with that and they take them to court anyway, hoping that the courts will find it in their quote-unquote wisdom to force the trustee to disclose information that normally the trustee is not required to disclose. Okay? Very important point as far as information is concerned. Later on in your studies, especially when you do part 2, you'll find out why this thing about information is so critical in the trust world.
Secondly, the trustees have to act impartially between the different beneficiaries. Maybe relationships between the beneficiaries, it might be like a 60-40 relationship between the beneficiaries, but they still should act appropriately in that regard. And this often comes up in cases of property, in particular thinking about life tenants and remainder. Just to give you a little bit of context there,
Now, folks, in your previous discussion so far, has the word impartial come up?
No.
Yes.
Yes, no. In terms of what you understand by impartial, what
Means to be fair.
Yeah, the trustee must be fair. There should be no bias. You follow? In other words, the trustee cannot favor one beneficiary over another. Doesn't matter how you feel about one or the other. Problem is, a lot of trustees have done this in the past and present. They love some beneficiaries and they don't like others for whatever reason. And they cause
using their discretionary.
Yes, absolutely. That's the problem with discretion, because once you have discretion, then if you don't like a beneficiary, you can start doing a little stupid stuff to try and make them miserable. That doesn't fall within, it falls in your discretion, but it's not necessarily fair and equitable. Do you follow? Discretion doesn't mean you can do any garbage you want. Discretion does mean you have to act in the best interest of the beneficiary anyway. A lot of times that does not happen. A lot of trustees are not impartial. Some trustees might have a relationship with one of the beneficiaries, you know, like a sexy beneficiary, and they meet to have drinks, go to Vegas or some bull crap like that. And so they try to act in direction in a biased or partial way to that particular beneficiary versus the other one who they don't have a relationship or connection to. That is wrong. Or any version of any kind of partiality is wrong. No matter what you feel, what you think, what the situation is, you must be fair and equitable, even in your discretion as a trustee. Truth of the matter is, these same principles should apply to us in our daily lives. That's why I tell you, this trustee thing is not just for working in a financial institution. It's a life thing. It's in case you become a trustee yourself as an individual. Sometimes you could become a constructive trustee, meaning you might have responsibility for certain things without actually having a trust instrument drawn up. Somebody leaves things in your care. Cohen, please hold on to these till I get back. I don't know when I'll be back, but if I don't come back, give it to my children and my wife. Say, man, I swear I can keep it. All of a sudden, they come back for a year, Cohen start thinking, man, they ain't coming back. And every day you start checking the account balance. 100,000, oh, mother's sake. A year later, 100,000, you hear nothing from Tom Jones. So you start getting funny as a construct. See, there was no trust instrument. There was no formal verbal trust even established. But you become a constructive trustee because you have taken possession of the assets of the person. Say, hold on to these, and for me, and if I don't come back, this. So you become a constructive trustee. okay, and all of a sudden you become partial to yourself, man. His family doesn't know, and he ain't coming back. It's my money now, because it's in my account, and that is not what is required. Okay? So this stuff is really not only for professional trustees, but for individual trustees and people in general, as we go about to do our business in the world. Just thought I'd throw that in. What about question? What about life tenants? Have you ever heard that word? No? You guys didn't talk about life tenants in the first 5 units? Probably not.
Life tenants?
Yes. Okay. Probably come up a little later. But life tenants are those beneficiaries. For example, if a guy, a settler might say, when I die, my wife is allowed to stay in the house until she dies. Should she become a life tenant in that particular asset called the home? Okay.
Okay.
Remainderment would be those persons who will benefit after his wife dies. In other words, pay her a certain amount every month, and she stays in the house as a life tenant until she dies. When she dies, then whatever's left will go to the remainderment. The remainderment will be whoever I say it goes to after she passes. You follow that, folks? And so everybody has an interest in the trustee being impartial. The beneficiaries who are the immediate benefits, who get the immediate benefits, the life tenants who expect to get their share until they die, like a wife or a husband, a spouse, and then the remainderment says, guys, don't waste all the assets, Mr. Trustee, because when all this stuff passes away, I expect to get something. Or if I'm dead, my children maybe. Okay? So that's how far and deep and wide this whole thing can go. Okay?
Tenant is someone who can essentially use a property for all of their life, and the remainderment is the person who gets the property after the life tenant does pass away. And so when you think about that, they have to think about whether, for example, to sell the property. Now, if that's done while the life tenant is alive, then that obviously benefits the life tenant, but it may not be beneficial for the remainderment. And so the trustee in that situation has to try and balance the two sides, whether they sell the property, and if they do so, how much the life tenant should get, how much the remainderment should get as well.
See, that's the tricky thing. So now, for example, if there's a life tenant for, let's say, a property, house and land valued at $300,000, and the trustee decides in his discretion, if it's a discretionary trust, to sell the property for $300,000, now the question comes up. Technically, the trustee may give the entire $300,000 to the life tenant, because technically it belongs to the life tenant if you sell the property that the life tenant is supposed to be living in. But in his discretion, he can also make the decision to give some to the life tenant and some to the remainderment, if he so chooses. So let's say he hates the remainderment. They talk to him really bad or whatever the reason, then he decides, fine, in my discretion, I'll sell the bloody thing and give it to the life tenant, and you guys carry your tail. I'm not giving you anything. If you want to sue me, sue me. And then we have another long court battle based on some precedent. Okay?
The main duty comes from Section 1.1 of the Trustee Act 2000. This is really talking about a duty of care. And essentially what it's talking about here is that the trustee basically has to act with such care and skill in the circumstances, having regard to things like special knowledge or experience that they may have, either as a trustee or perhaps as someone who has a legal background, for example. And that's kind of the core of the duty that came in the year 2000, because under the previous law, it was mostly based around 19th and early 20th century case law that was simply outdated. And so I've basically put Section 1.1 of the 2000 Act there so that you have a good idea about what the new duty of care is for trustees.
And notice that year 2000 is right around the time our Trustee Act came into place. And what year is it again? Anyone?
2000.
2000.
Our Trustee Act was
1989?
1998.
yeah, 1998.
98.
Absolutely. And the reason why I throw it out is again because this stuff is something you have to keep saying over and over until you get sick of it. That's how you get ready for your examination, and that's how you remember stuff long after your examination is passed. Okay? So you can see the premise for our Trustee Act of 1998, which came in fact before the 2000. So we were part of that new world order when it comes to trusteeships, moving away from the old 20th century, 19th, 18th century stuff to what we call modern trusts. Okay? So the Bahamas is very much a part of modern trusts.
So where does this duty of care actually apply to in the context of being a trustee? Well, we've got there, so investments and compounding. Compounding just means increasing the value of the property or investments, acquiring land, appointments such as other trustees, for example, reversions where the property returns back to the settlor, the person who created the trust in the first place, valuations, audits, insurance, all that type of thing is where the duty.
Now, folks, just bear in mind, we are discussing in our unit today, which is what this is a part of, trustee duties. And you can see this is only the tip of the iceberg when it comes to trustee duties and powers. And already there's a long laundry list, but this laundry list is nowhere near exhausted. You're going to see a whole lot more about the duties and powers because the trustee has a whole lot of that, which gives the business of trusteeship such a huge responsibility. Especially, and all of these topics are crucial because remember, when we're talking about trustees and trusteeships, we could be talking about a $50,000 life insurance, or we could be talking about a multi-billion-dollar set of assets across the board, from cash to paintings to stamps to yachts to mansions. Do you follow? So this thing about how the trustee would invest those assets and how land would be acquired for the trust fund, and what money will be used, is that a good thing for the fund, who to appoint, how to value assets, who to get as auditors, how to insure all of these assets. It's a huge responsibility, which is essentially why it lies with professional trustees who have to hire a whole lot of professionals, pay them a whole lot of money to properly administer that trust so that the trustee can make those big fat trust fees that they make and also keep themselves out of the courts and ultimately ending up paying some of their money back to beneficiaries for being in breach of trust.
Quick question. The duties and powers of trustees, that's unit 7. So we're covering unit 6 and 7 with this.
Is it unit 7 in your book?
Yes, it's unit 7 in my book.
Okay. Are you guys using, so you don't have this book? Can you see this?
Hold on, let me cut off my background.
No? Trust and Law Administration Stage 1.
Yes.
I have that one.
Okay. Yeah, I see the course syllabus is showing it duties and powers as 7. But if you actually go into the text, you open the text and go into it, you'll see the duties and powers are actually under unit 6. Does everybody see that?
Appointment of trustees is under unit 6. According to my book.
According
I'm a trustee for mine.
in my
Yeah, I'm a trustee.
Say it again?
Appointment of trustees.
Yeah, appointment of trustees.
That's our next chapter. That's the
And so
where we
your
left.
powers are under what unit?
in unit 7.
Unit 7? And
Yeah,
trustee remuneration is where?
Unit 7 is duties and powers of trustee.
And the next
Appointment of
unit?
trustees. Duties and powers of trustees, unit 7.
And your unit 8 is what?
Trustee remuneration.
Okay, so my text is in structure is a unit behind you guys, but hopefully the information is the same. Okay?
But we still missing a unit though. We going back to that then.
You guys are missing a unit?
Appointment of trustees.
You don't have that?
We have it.
We didn't go over that.
Yeah, but
That's the. Sorry, go ahead.
Unit 6.
Our last class we did unit 5. The unit that we're on now is the appointment of trustees.
Okay. So unit 5 was what heading?
Validity of trust.
Validity of trust.
Validity of trusts. Interesting, because my schedule is showing that I am to begin with unit 6, which I know in your syllabus outline is unit 7.
Yeah.
Unit 6, our unit 6 is appointment of trustees. That's where it began, our unit 6.
No,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
unit 7 is duties and powers of the trustee.
Yes, unit 7 is duties and powers of trustees.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
So who's covering appointment of trustees?
Yeah, but that's not what I was told. As far as I'm aware, I'm supposed to be beginning with unit 6, which in my text is duties and powers. So what I'm going to do, since that is what I actually prepared, we're going to go through duties, and then once I clear the air, and when we come back next week, we'll go back and do the appointment of trustees. Okay?
Okay.
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 Because
Sounds good.
obviously we had 2 different types of information. So we're going to do duties and powers today, which is the next unit, and then next week we'll go back for the appointments, and then we'll go forward.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Absolutely. All right.
I don't
Somebody
know.
else got a question? Okay, let's go.
Apply. Section 1.1 of the Trustee Act 2000 is backed up by sections 3, 4, and 5. Section 3 basically just says a trustee can make any investment that is allowed to under the trust, so gives them a bit of discretion there. Section 4 says the criteria for investments is based on suitability and diversity. In other words, not putting all of your eggs into one basket, but spreading out the risk as much as they certainly should do so. And suitability kind of comes back to the idea that we mentioned earlier about whether it's sort of the trust where you should make a low risk investment, or maybe it's something where you should be making a high risk investment. Section 5 talks about considering and obtaining advice, which is pretty similar to what we've already talked about in the context of hit and hold. So definitely something that's now represented in statute as well. Let's move on to some of the powers though. And it's important to say that because these have a lesser status, in other words, like we said right at the start, these are essentially optional, they can actually be excluded by the trust instrument. So the first one that we're talking about here, which is the power of maintenance under section 31 of the 1925 Act, it would certainly be possible that the power of maintenance is excluded by the trust instrument, and that would be allowed, even though it sort of essentially goes against what is in the statute. So we mentioned maintenance there. What do we actually mean by this? Well, this is money that's paid out from the trust to a parent or guardian of a child beneficiary, and that's for their maintenance, education, or general benefit. And so it might be something like a school trip or something like that, just to pay for their schooling or music lessons, and maintenance can be paid out of the trust to a parent or guardian to support that.
And again, of course, this is just an introduction to all kinds of different things that trusts can be used to do, and primarily established. And you'll see much more of why settlers established trusts in the first place. The list is one that goes out the door. When you do section stage 2, you'll see even more sophisticated reasons why settlers establish these trusts. Okay? It's big business.
Meanwhile, under section 32, we also have the trustees have the power to advance capital money to any beneficiary for that person's benefit. And so we're no longer dealing with just simply with child beneficiaries in this situation. This may be an adult beneficiary who, for example, is wanting to start a business, and so they want a lump sum of money paid out of the trust instead of having to go out and maybe get a business loan or something like that. So that power exists under Section 32, although as you say, anyone with a prior life interest does have to consent as per Section 32(1)(c).
Let me just say that the Bahamas Trustee Act was established in 1998, but the popular UK Trustee Act is the Trustee Act of 1925. You may want to put that in your long-term memory banks. That Trustee Act of 1925 will come out from time to time as a precedent, because much of what we do in the Trustee Act of 1998 came from the Trustee Act of 1925 UK, as is with so many other things we've done. But we do have our modern twists, which will be introduced to you, over time.
Benefit is given a broad interpretation, so it doesn't necessarily just have to be a financial benefit, it can just be of a general benefit to that person. Maybe that the person wants to go on a gap year on a round the world trip, and if that's considered to be of benefit to them, then that will generally be allowed. Section 8 of the 2000 Act.
And these are all trustee powers. Remember, what is the difference between a power and a duty? Anybody remembers?
A duty
is a
is
must, and a,
right.
Yeah.
and the powers
Was can.
can.
May.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
A duty is a must, a power is a may, or you can. Okay? It's not a must, but you may and you can.
Right.
Trustees the power to buy land, which is relatively broad, and they're allowed to do that. And meanwhile, there is also another power, which is in relation to delegation, and the trustee can delegate decisions except for those which relate to the distribution of assets. In other words, which beneficiaries get which money or property, the payment of fees from income or capital of the trust. In other words, if fees, certain lawyers' fees have to be paid, or like we were talking about with experts, if they have to pay the experts and that has to come out of the trust money, then that is a decision that should be made by the trustee. Appointment of new trustees also has to be obviously made by existing trustees rather than a delegated person. And any further sub-delegation is also not really possible. It's something only the trustee can actually delegate. Finally, it's really important just to quickly mention about the possibility of excluding liability, because this is really powerful and something that a lot of trust instruments will now include.
Okay, so I'm going to pause that for the moment because I want us to have a little chit chat about some other things before I get into the trustee liability, and then I'll come back a bit later and we can finish our discussion on that. All right, so let's get into Unit 6, which I think is your Unit 7. I hope the information is the same. Does your Unit 7, Duties and Powers of the Trustee, begin with learning outcomes after completing trustee duties? Let me pull it up.
Yeah, understand the general duties of a trustee.
Okay, perfect. So even though our chapter heading is a little different, thank God we are just trying to bring up this page so you guys can. Okay, since we have the exact same information, then I can just kind of get into it because you have it in front of you. Does everybody have, you all have your notes in front of you? Or would you prefer to bring up the page so that you can read it off your screen?
You can put it on the screen.
Okay, let me just,
No,
yeah, so you have the option. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. So our chit chat this afternoon, we've already started the chit chat a long time ago. This is actually a text version of what we've been seeing and discussing all along, the duties and powers of the trustees. And at the end of the day, as you can see, aware of certain things like the general duties that we saw already how to apply these duties to practical situations. We've been having very practical discussions. Appreciating the duties of trustees as fiduciaries. Did you guys come across that word before today? Fiduciary.
Yes.
What do you understand by that word? That a trustee is a fiduciary.
Yeah, that. Trustee.
Who is a fiduciary?
Trustee.
Or anybody who is acting what?
On behalf of someone?
And in faith. Absolutely.
Mhm.
The fiduciary means acting on behalf of somebody, and more importantly, in good faith. So whenever a trustee is acting as a fiduciary or anybody, we are supposed to be acting in good faith. Good faith means what? Doing everything for the benefit of the person and nothing that will hurt them as we seek to carry out our responsibilities with regards to them. In this case, beneficiaries. Everybody get that?
Yes.
Fiduciary is a very popular word in trusteeships because some trustees are great fiduciaries and others leave much to be desired. That's why many of them find themselves either on trial, paying heavy fines, in prison, or God forbid, losing their trusteeship and millions of dollars in trustee fees every year. There are some trustees that earn millions of dollars every year in trustee fees because they manage significant trusts. And so it is in their best interest to not forget their fiduciary responsibility. But it doesn't matter. Some of them still try to take a chance and end up in the dog house. All right. So let us begin. I'm going to stop talking and ask somebody to start reading for me so I can take a break. And I'm going to start from the very top of my list with Anushka. So Anushka, why don't you get us started? Trustees' duties so that we can move on.
Okay, trustees' duties. As mentioned previously, trustees are fiduciaries, one who acts on behalf of another with regard to a particular matter. And as fiduciaries, trustees are in a position of trust and confidence in which they have a duty of loyalty to the beneficiaries of their respective trusts. Bristol and West Building Society versus Matthew 1996.
Nice little case to remember with regards to trustee duties. Okay.
A trustee has a standard of care as established in Spike versus Gaunt, 1883, that as a general rule, a trustee sufficiently discharges his duties if he takes in managing trust affairs all those precautions which an ordinary, prudent man of business would take in managing affairs of his own. A higher standard care is required for a professional trustee.
Now, let me just stick a pin there and say this, because this is important. First of all, we now know why the fiduciary responsibility is important. One who acts on behalf of another in good faith. That's the first key. The second key is that when you're acting as trustee, you must act as a prudent man would. How does a prudent man act normally? He would run, the trustee would run the beneficiary's affairs as if he's running his own. Usually most of us, when we're handling our own money and our own assets, we tend to be very what? Careful. We watch it all the time. We check it. We make sure nobody runs off with it. We are very meticulous about it. We're finicky about it, aren't we?
Yes.
Especially our hard-earned bloody money. Which is why whenever guys have to go to the boss and lose everything to their wives, they never because Are you married, Cohen?
No, I'm not married.
What are you waiting for? Are you trying to preserve assets?
Don't do it, Cohen.
Is that a girl saying don't do it? That's unusual. Usually, do it.
Don't do it till you're ready.
Oh, no,
Exactly.
but when are you going to be ready?
Whenever you feel so.
When COVID goes.
Oh my God. COVID is here. Sound like.
Exactly.
Well, just know that once you get married, if your wife decides to leave, you can lose all your assets that you worked for.
Oh, and you sweating?
Small things, that's small things, Kobe. Don't
Change
worry
of
about that.
heart.
Don't watch nothing.
There's something to think about. So you will have to try and act as prudent as you can. I don't know why our wives still get everything these days, considering our wives have their own jobs and money they tell me.
Mhm.
Anyway,
But if wives die, don't husbands inherit property too?
no, well, it depends.
Well, pardon?
It depends.
Oh,
See?
oh,
But I'm glad you
I
asked, I'm
know.
glad you said that, because it's so nice to hear a girl say that she would want her husband to inherit. Because usually
Yeah,
wives don't like to leave anything for husbands.
yeah, because you always get dizzy when the wife dies. I mean, that's a different topic. You always get dizzy.
Immediately.
Cohen, we have to be talking about you. Couldn't be me. Yes, that's true. But so do our wives.
We don't get dizzy as quick. You always get dizzy like 2 months later.
We don't get married right away.
No, that's what I mean. We don't get
No.
dizzy 2 months later.
If they be with a woman
I
like
can take
get married right away.
Especially if she have children. Ain't happening.
Oh,
Mhm.
well, yeah. Well, what happens is if a wife dies and the husband has the children, he might rush to get
What do you
married
need?
because he needs somebody to change Pampers.
He needs help. Yeah,
He
oh, familiar line.
rush to get married too soon and get egg again.
True.
I see Cohen is keeping his head down. He wouldn't hold it up.
At least you have your lines ready.
So yeah. So the trustee has to act as a prudent man would, just how you would act with your own stuff. If you're a trustee,
Yeah.
treat the beneficiaries the same way. Very important. And in the case of professional trustee, and even because you have the money and resources to make sure you do the job right. Which is why when professional trustees go before the courts don't take no foolishness. You are a company, you have professionals, don't come to me with crap, Mr. Trustee. Get your act together or we're ruling against you. Now get out. Something like that. Okay, keep going. Anushka?
Okay. Trustees' duties relate primarily to the management of trust assets and the distribution of such assets in accordance to the provisions of the trust instrument. Generally, these duties are owed to the beneficiaries of the trust, and any breach of those duties or an improper or negligent performance of such duties may result in commencement of a breach of trust action by the beneficiaries or some liability on the part of the trustees.
Which we've been talking about all evening. Okay, just a reminder there of what will happen if a trustee is found to be in breach of trust. Okay, keep going.
Okay, trustees' duties may be divided into three broad categories of duties. One, management duties. Example, investment, management, and distribution of trust property reasonably, fairly, prudently, and equitably.
Excuse me, need I say more? I mean, if that doesn't leave a stain or a mark on you, then you are hopeless. Don't become a trustee. Okay.
Number two, administrative duties. Trustees must know and carry out the terms of the trust.
Yeah, in other words, when you say you're a trustee, the first thing you should do is sit your tail down with a martini or whatever you drink and read that trust instrument. Know what's in it. It's like any other legal document. If you don't read it, then you do so at your own peril. Nothing is different for the trustee. Okay? It's a major, major, major administrative function. And if you don't do it, then it may make you or break you as a trustee. It's quite that simple. Okay.
Number three, duties of Propriety.
Yes.
Duties must not act dishonestly and inappropriately. Must treat all trustees, sorry. Trustees must not act dishonestly and inappropriately. Must treat all beneficiaries fairly and communicate with beneficiaries in a professional and timely manner.
Do I need to clarify anything in there for anybody? I hope not. All of those words you should be familiar with by now, even as not being a trustee, just from your own day-to-day life so far. Because like I said, we're studying trusteeships and trust administration. A lot of these things apply to your real everyday lives. Because in a way, you're a trustee for yourself, aren't you?
Yes.
Absolutely. And then if you're married, you're a trustee for your spouse and children, correct?
Correct.
And so these kinds of duties actually apply to us in that constructive capacity, even though it's not a formal trust situation. And that's why I tell you, do not take it lightly, because even if you're not a trustee at the moment, if you do not work in a trust company at the moment, or whatever the case might be, it does apply nevertheless. Okay, that's the key. Okay, thanks, Anishka. Can you guys see this next page, one of the primary?
Yes.
Great. Cohen, it's your turn. Let it rip.
One of the primary duties of a trustee in relation to trust administration is to act in good faith in the best interest of the trust. Additionally, trustees must not place themselves in a position where duty conflicts with their personal interests. Should a trustee's duty conflict with his personal interests, he will be liable to account to the beneficiaries from any profits made by him as a result of this conflict. Bray versus Ford, 1896.
Absolutely. Now, folks, that means if you're a trustee, do not find yourself in any conflict of interest issues. Do not mix up your personal affairs, but I dead broke. I can try and use some of this trustee money. You cannot do that, even if you're dead broke. I dead hungry, I can use some to buy food, starve to death, borrow it from somewhere else. You cannot touch the trust funds for your own personal use. You cannot use the trust money to buy property, buy a house, go on trips, take your family to doggone Waikiki. None of that crap, which many trustees have done in the past and some are doing now. But it is a no-no, it is imprudent, and it is beyond the scope of any trustee. And I can assure you, if any beneficiary finds out, they will come upon you with a ton of bricks. Okay? All right, keep going.
It does not matter how honestly a trustee acted or that he has invested considerable time or effort in the administration of a trust, if he is found to have acted in conflict of his duties to the beneficiaries of a trust. There may, however, be instances where the trust instrument expressly provides that the fiduciary duty shall not apply in a specific circumstance.
We'll see those later. But for now, none of that crap.
If a trustee is placed by the settlor in a position where his duty and interest conflict, then different considerations will apply. Sargent and another versus National Westminster Bank PLC and another 1990. In addition to the foregoing duties, trustees must, one, become acquainted and familiarize themselves with the terms of the trust.
Notice that is at the top of the list. Not at the bottom, not in the middle. Read the trust instrument first. That is your Bible. Now, you could be crazy and not read it, but you're busy with something else. But I can assure you, if you don't, it will come back to haunt you. Okay.
2, administer the trust in accordance with its terms.
Not yours. Okay.
3, treat all beneficiaries fairly and impartially. 4, give account of the trust funds and trust investments to the beneficiaries.
There should be an accounting, there should be a general ledger, there should be somewhere where all the monies that come in go into the bank, and all the monies that go out can be accounted for with the appropriate documentation and receipts. No bunch of crap, but something got lost, the rats ate it, it was there yesterday, none of that crap. You have to be accountable for every C, And if you don't know before, you need to know now. Only poor people don't count cents. Rich people do. Did you know that?
Yep.
Make no
Yes,
mistake.
from working in the
Yeah.
bank, I noticed that, yes.
Make no mistake. Okay? For all my, if I had all the change that I say keep the change, like I'm doggone ransoming it all. Thank you. Listen, keep the change. You know, for the last 50 years of my life, imagine how much money I would have. Keep the change. Because we're not counting pennies. But people with money,
They always do.
yeah, you short them like 1, 2 flicking cents. They're like, and 33 cents. And then they look at it, it's only 31, excuse me. The other 2
Yes.
cents. Yeah, and you're like,
They have a saying, watch the pennies and the dollars will take care of itself.
trust me, rich people take
And
that.
they mean that.
Yeah, only poor people like us, like working people, so, man,
Yeah.
we have 1 cent all of, man, I only know 1 cent. Yeah, it's interesting. All right, keep going.
5. Invest trust property in a timely and authorized manner.
Yes.
6. Protect and preserve trust property.
I'm sorry to interrupt you again, but I have to interrupt you when you say something interesting. The P&P of the trustee. Whenever you hear that, P&P, that's another fundamental function that you have. Protect and preserve. Okay? That is crucial. If any beneficiary find that you are not doing that, they're coming upside your head and they're going to try and not only get you to pay penalties, pay back anything that you were negligent in dealing with, but they will also probably try and seek to have you removed. And so all those millions you were making will be gone. Absolutely. So when you think about that, it's something for a trustee to consider. It's amazing how some trustees still try and get away with crap with all that hanging over their head. But you know how we go. Okay, keep going.
7. Keep the beneficiaries informed in accordance with the trust instrument and the law. 8. Not make a personal profit unless authorized to do so in the trust instrument.
What instrument?
In the trust instrument.
If it's not there, you can't profit. Period. Okay? If you want to make a profit outside the trust instrument, you have to call all the beneficiaries together and say, can I make a profit on this? And all have to agree. If one disagree, you can't do it. You follow, folks?
Correct.
All right.
The beneficiaries, if sui juris, or the court. 9. Not delegate the performance of their duties or exercise powers unless authorized to do so by the trust instrument. 10. Prudently in administration of the trust.
Yes, keep going.
The case of Bodman versus Phipps, 1967, illustrates the importance of trustees not making secret profits from the trust without authorization.
Do any of you know anybody who makes secret profits from anything? Somebody has to be a devil's advocate. I'm just throwing it out there.
Politician.
Oh, politicians, yes. They're always making secret profits, secret money, secret deals. Are they the only ones?
No.
Who else makes secret deals?
Lawyers.
Lawyers,
Yeah,
accountants,
lawyer.
professionals of all
Yeah.
kinds, bishops, pastors, priests, Vatican.
Ooh.
The list goes on and on. Even
Yep.
individual persons like try to gyp you like, boy, that's all they give me. That time they keep the rest. That's a secret profit, isn't it? And they try to hide until somebody say, you got the 300 I gave Tom for you. Why you give me 150? And I'm like, stop, man. You lie. So this thing is across the board. Okay? Nobody is exempted. And we're all not only trustees, that's why I tell you, this crap is all encompassing if you care to be expansive in your thinking. All right, keep going.
No person standing in a fiduciary position when a demand is made upon him by the person to whom he stands in a fiduciary relationship to account for profit by him by reason of the opportunity and the knowledge, or either resulting from it, is entitled to defeat the claim upon any ground, save that he may profits with the knowledge and assent of the other person.
Now that gobbledygook that came from the case, that's just the legal mumbo jumbo for do not make profits unless you are authorized to do so. Okay, folks? That's what all that is. All right, keep going.
1 second. Profits may be in the form of director's fees, re Macadam, profits made by him where he enters into competition with a business belonging to his trust, IDC versus Cooley, or the misuse of opportunities and information, Boardman versus Phipps.
Thank you so much, Cohen. So there you have it. The duties and powers of the trustee can be used to do the work of the trust, but now you see it can also be used for the benefit of the trustee, which is a no. Those 3 examples that we're given, trust me, they're not the only 3. Those are just 3 of the common ones. Crooked trustees are always looking for loopholes, just like crooked money launderers, terrorist financiers, defrauders, and thiefers of any kind.
What are they?
Thiefers.
They're always looking-
I love it.
Oh, thiefers.
While we're sleeping, they're always looking for creative ways to thief something of some kind. Sometimes even our spouses are looking for ways to get something because they've been your demise long before they tell you they're leaving. Cohen, by the time she tells you she's leaving, she's already
Going again?
Only man.
That's right.
So yeah, by the time it's Cohen, I'm leaving your tail. Man, she already figured out she leaving you, what you carrying, what you ain't gonna get. You could take that stinking cat. And don't get me mad, I'll carry that too. No, I know I married you in the first place. And this you, but didn't I help us get the house? So what? That's the past. Well, didn't I buy the car for you for your birthday on our 7th anniversary? So what, Cohen? Don't hold me up.
That's an affection.
That's the same thing with your man, like remind woman what you do. I going, don't remind me nothing, right? And she leaves. But doesn't mean that she just planned it immediately. Cohen. The mother's sick, man. But don't worry about that. Still get married. Okay? And marry Anishka.
Matchmaking.
I hope you ain't taken, because child.
She sounds like she doesn't mind leaving like something if she dies or something. Because most chicks, I leave it to my mommy, my daddy, my sister, and my brother. And people say, well, what about your husband? That's somebody else's child. No matter how hard you work all those years with that chick. Cohen. Hopefully you don't run into one. Okay. Thank you very much, Cohen, for saying those things that brought on other things. All right, Georgette, why don't you pick up the next page for us? A trustee.
Sure. A trustee may not delegate his duties to an agent, third party, or co-trustee unless he is authorized to do so in the trust instrument. In order to delegate such duties, the trustee must ensure that there are provisions made in the trust instrument to allow him to appoint agents and delegate tasks for the administration of the trust.
Now, folks, are we all clear on what delegate means? What do we mean when we say delegate?
Give it to away assigned to somebody else.
Yeah. Passing on a function or responsibility to somebody else. That's delegation. However, like other managers and supervisors and CEOs and other people in church or wherever, the trustee does not have the luxury to delegate any of his responsibilities unless he's authorized to do so in the
trust instrument.
Absolutely. Remember, that is his Bible. And if he violates any provision in that Bible, he's in trouble. And delegation is one of them. So before he says, I want to pass the accounting function to the accountant or the accounting firm, he can't just do that. Go to the trust instrument and see if the instrument allows him to do that. which oftentimes it does, but the point is made. Okay, keep going.
In common law, the case of Steele v. Welcome Custodian Trustees Limited, 1988, confirmed that a trustee will be given immunity or protection under law for the delegation of his duties to an agent. However, under the Trustee Act 1998, the trustee must take responsible steps in the appointment of such agents and in the supervision of their delegated tasks. It is
Interesting.
important.
Now notice that word reasonable. Under our Trustee Act, correct, of 1998,
Yes.
you may delegate. However, there are certain conditions that you have to meet, and they must be reasonable steps. And we're going to find out about the steps sometime later that the trustee must take if he or she seeks to delegate trustee responsibilities under our act. Okay, keep going.
It is important to note that only in exceptional circumstances may fiduciary receive remuneration for his time and effort in acting in such capacity. As a general rule, trustees are not allowed to be remunerated for their work in relation to the trust unless they are authorized by the trust instrument.
Good God.
So the trust instrument doesn't speak to it, you can't get paid.
No, who said that?
Georgette.
Yes,
That's the law.
you're absolutely right. If the trust instrument does not make a provision for you to get paid, I don't care how much money goes through your hand, you can't touch a cent. How about that?
So we don't want to be no trustee.
So when you decide to be a trustee, you better
Just put it
know
in.
what you're doing.
Probably about.
Because remember, some of us become a trustee because we're somebody's BFF, right?
Yeah.
So what are we doing? We're doing them a favor because we love them. And so we don't want their money. We just doing them a favor. We made them a promise or whatever the case might be. But the fact of the hard fact is trustees are not required to be remunerated in law or otherwise unless the instrument says so.
Powerful.
If you have a trusteeship that you want to take up, whether it's personal or corporate, make sure you get from the writing in the person, Susie. Now, if you agree to do it free, don't blame anybody. Keep your trap shut and do it. Don't moan, don't groan. But if you feel you wanted to
Oh, Lord.
be your services, you have to tell your BFF, I love you, but things tough and this COVID, I break.
Jobs go in.
Yeah, I'll do it, but not free. How about 5% of the total amount or whatever, and come to some agreement, and then put it in?
Just mix it up.
Of course, because if it's word of mouth, later on the beneficiary may come back and say, you don't agree with what rest our money. They say, well, your mommy agreed. They say, where? Because now they have Wayne Monroe. Where? And they didn't come in. Well, I don't say what wrong here.
They get the best team, Wayne and Rodney.
Yeah, absolutely. And even though Wayne talks slow and funny, he does get to the point.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't mind how I talk. I don't mind my talking.
He sound junglist for true.
It's plenty between them two ears.
But he's smart.
Yeah, I smarter than I sound.
He just arms you with his way he speak.
Of course. But at the end of the day, when he brings his case, if you don't have your act together, dog eat your lunch. All right? And that's how it's supposed to be no matter how you talk. It's all about the case, see? Not that person, how they look, how they talk, how British they sing. How was that? None of that matters in the case. All right? So now you know something significant about being a trustee. You can't just yuck money, but I work that hard. Doesn't matter unless you have an agreement, preferably in writing. Okay, keep going, Georgette.
Therefore, trustees must ensure that the trust instrument allows them to be remuneration from the trust fund for reasonable expenses. Example, out-of-pocket expenses incurred in the administration of the trust.
Now, out-of-pocket may not be enough for some persons because they said, yeah, these photocopy and all that. Yeah, I want that money too, but I want money for my stress. Running beneficiaries up and down, arguing with biggity beneficiaries, family members, ex-husbands, whatever it is.
Working through lunch break.
Yeah, working through and trying to do all this crap for you, for my be. I don't want no normal and necessary. I want extra. So make sure whatever you think your time is worth, you put it in the agreement. Now, if your BFF says, man, I thought you was my friend, you want money? And you tell him, yeah, I want money. I have to buy food for my children too, Suzette. And so on, until you work out an agreement. And she said, well, I won't give no money to you. Then fine, find another trustee who will work free. Then you and my bestest BF, fine. And so the friendship breaks up on that. But the point is, you know now what is required. That's the point. Okay? All right, keep going.
The court does not have discretion. The court does have discretion to allow remuneration or increase a trustee's remuneration. Foster v. Spencer, 1996, and Reed Duke of Norfolk Settlement Trust, 1982.
So in other words, if you're not getting paid and you think you should, you can take it to court, present your case as to why. The court may or may not agree. If you're getting a certain amount of trustee fees, but you're working harder and you think you should get more, you have to go to court again and say, this original fee is not fair, and here's why. Present your facts. And the court will look at the facts and decide whether your petition is reasonable or not.
Mr. Wilkinson,
Yes.
when you go back and forth to court,
Yes.
like if you want more money or whatever discrepancies you have, who pays the fee?
Depends on who wins the case.
Okay.
Absolutely. So if the beneficiary bring a case against the trustee and the beneficiary wins, the trustee will have to pay out the trustee money. His profits.
Okay.
If the trustee wins, the beneficiary will have to pay out of their money.
Okay.
That's how it works. All right, good question. Keep moving. Keep going.
Trustee powers. The nature of a trust involves a trustee holding the legal interest in the property. The equitable interest in the property is held in trust for the beneficiary, its lawful owner.
So now you know, if you didn't know before, that when a trust is established, the trustee has legal title, because the settlor has to turn everything over to the trustee legally. Once that happens, the settlor owns nothing anymore. Is that clear?
Yeah.
Period. I don't care if he can find his census the next day or year. Does not matter. He cannot get them back.
But tell me something, question. Okay, he turns it over then to the trustee, right?
Legally.
But it's held in trust for
the beneficiary.
Okay, but should the trustee pass away, this doesn't fall on this estate, right?
If the trustee passes away?
Yeah, any assets that he's holding.
You mean like if this is an individual trustee?
Yes. Say, okay.
You know, if it's a corporate trustee, companies don't pass away, only people.
Yes.
Okay, so in the case of an individual trustee dying, things will happen. Either a new trustee will be appointed by the beneficiaries, or the beneficiaries will get a lawyer and then go to court potentially and say, the trustee has died. We don't want no new cotton picking trustee. We are asking the court to liquidate the assets and distribute it to the beneficiaries, and therefore bring the trust to an end.
Okay.
That's in the case of an individual trustee. Okay, it's not that simple when it comes to corporate trustees. Okay, and you'll see why later. Keep going.
Okay, a power is where a person owns both the legal and equitable interest in property. As the absolute owner of the property, the person may do as he wishes with the property and may, in his absolute discretion, transfer all or part of the property to another person. It is important to note that while a trustee may be the legal owner of the trust property, he does not have the full powers of a legal owner of the property as recognized in law.
Pick a pin, Georgette. Another critical point. First of all, we are now discussing trustee what?
Powers.
What were we discussing before?
Duties.
Duties. mix them up. So
Okay.
when you have your test, don't answer stuff that come in powers, that should fall under duties and vice versa. Students do it because they mix up the duties and powers. Try not to do that.
Okay.
Secondly, this thing about the trustee may be the legal owner, but does not have full powers in law. All that means is this: in accordance with the trust agreement, he is holding the legal title, but he cannot dispose of them and use the funds for his personal use as he would with his own personal property. Understood?
Okay.
Absolutely. If he tries to dispose of them, he will be found to be in breach of trust by beneficiaries, unless all the beneficiaries get together and say you would like to bring this trust to an end. And we're asking you to liquidate all the assets and distribute it according to the trust instrument. Do you follow?
Yes.
If that's not the case, all the trustee can do is legally hold them and distribute them in accordance with the instrument. Period. No ifs, ands, and buts. That's it. But he can't say, I have 25 cars in my trust. I'm going to turn one of them over to me. Some of them have done that, but they were also discovered and they suffered the consequences. You cannot do that as a trustee. And then jump about 25 cars, they're only using 3. I just thought I'd turn one over to me because my car's not in good shape. You can't do that. Doesn't matter what your condition is. Take your lousy, stinky trustee fee if you're getting one and go. Yeah, like that. Buy a Japanese car. Simple as that. Which, by the way, I told my wife, that's what our next car will be. One of those small ones, those gas savers. Yeah, so we could cruise around. She said, why you want to get that? I said, because we're now in another category in life. We should get that. She's like, why though? Because, well, you guys will see what I mean when you grow up. Okay, keep going.
Goodness.
Not grow up, get older.
Mm.
Okay. Listen, I see what Mr. Wilkinson meant. I wouldn't cloud you with too many. Keep going.
Trustees may exercise such powers given to them in the trust deed under the Trustee Act or under the general law.
What's the general law? Since it's there, what do we know what the Trustee Act is of 1998, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's the general law? Whoever wrote this should have said what the general law was. But general law is normally the common law. Remember that word?
Yeah.
Common law is all those cases that went before, which we used to help us make about cases that come up now and in the future. Okay? When we can't find a common law case that suits the current case, then we go to the statute law, which is the Trustee Act. And when none of those work, where do we go?
Let me write this down.
What's the final resting place for any case? Hello?
Court.
Of course, you guys took a while to say that. It's important that you know that for your own life, irrespective of this stinky trustee academia stuff. You need to know for your own life that if nothing works in your life, your final resting place is court. But remember I said, be careful. Try to settle where?
Or the court.
Whenever possible. Because once it gets in, you're bound by the decision of the court, even if you don't like the decision. All right, keep going.
Where was I now? I forgot. Okay, recall that a power is discretionary and a duty is mandatory.
True or false?
Sorry.
True or false?
Was it true?
Mussy. I can't believe you for saying mussy because it does get mixed up from time to time. Who agrees with true? Okay. If you agree with true, then it is true. A power is discretionary, meaning that you may. A duty is mandatory, meaning that you must.
Yep.
Okie dokie, keep going.
Where am I now? In the absence of bad faith, a court will not interfere with a trustee's exercise of his duty. Its discretion. A trustee also not be compelled to exercise his fiduciary powers, even though he has a duty to exercise such power. The distinction between a trust and a power placed in a trust was outlined in the case of McPhail v. Dalton, 1971.
So for all of you like a little curious, you can pull it up on your phone whenever you want and look at the first paragraph and the last, and you'll see what McFall versus Dalton was all about in terms of the exercise of the trustee power. Keep going.
The powers of a trustee by statute are set out in Pars 2, 3, and 4 of the Trustee Act.
Which
Some of
trustee
the-
act was that? 1925 and 1998? You think?
1998.
Yes, said that. Whoever said that, that's correct.
Mhm.
1925 is the old UK Act, which they're still using in the UK, but we have our own acts now. So we're not completely doggone. We have our own thing, the Trustee Act of 1998, under which the following powers. Keep going.
Some of the main powers are power of investment,
Okay.
power to retain investment. You switch too fast on me.
I'm sorry.
Why you do
Hang in there.
that? Okay.
There you go.
Power of sale, power to insure,
Now, what do you think a power to insure is? Anyone? Power to insure.
you mean to insure property?
Of course, or any of the assets.
Okay.
Just don't insure with CLECO.
And your power of sale mean like when the banks repossess and they used to resell the property, right?
Absolutely, because remember, in case you didn't know before, now that you're studying trusteeship, whenever a bank repossesses your car or your house, they become a constructive trustee by virtue of the repossession, which means that technically in law, they're responsible for those assets and disposing of them appropriately. You understand? So now they have the power of sale as a result of their agreement with you, whether you read it or not. It's in documents you sign on the
It's a
30
fine print.
in italics, yes. Okay? They all have the power to repossess if you do not pay. And once they repossess, under that same covenant or agreement, they have the power to sell, whether you agree or not. But they do have a responsibility that they can't sell it for anything they feel like. In case you didn't.
Sorry, my phone died.
Whose phone?
Mackenzie, sorry. I'm just
That's okay, just plug it
phone
in.
had died.
Oh, you came back.
Yeah, it had left. Sorry.
Okay. All right. So yeah, that power of sale, somebody said like the bank, absolutely. However, banks or anybody who repossesses anything, they have a duty to sell for the best possible price they can get in the market. They can't repossess your house and say our loan balance is only 10,000 and sell your house for 10,000. Some of them have attempted to do that, but you have a
That's
right.
Swiss Caribbean.
Yeah, they should not do that. Anybody here works for Swiss Caribbean?
No comment.
Don't laugh. I call them out.
I worked there for 9 years, but I'm a central bank now.
Thank God, so I can say what I have to say. So
No, you can't. No, Cohen works the First Caribbean.
I'll try and dress it up a little bit then.
Do your best. Do your best.
Yeah, if you see me getting off on the deep end like with CLECO, just remember.
He can't help himself.
Yeah, there have been rumors. How's that so far?
Go ahead, you're doing good.
There have been rumors in the past that institutions like CIBC have sought, in some cases, to liquidate under their power of sale the assets of certain clients, balance of the loan, which indeed they must have known if it's not illegal, it is certainly unethical to do so. For their responsibility is first and foremost a fiduciary one, notwithstanding the fact that they have the right to repossess and the power of sale. And that right fiduciary responsibility is to act in good faith with due care, which means that you have to always, whether you're CIBC or anybody with such a power, power, to try to get the best possible price for the asset, such that if you have money left over from getting the best possible price, you return the difference to whom?
The customer.
Absolutely. Don't be a dog. Sorry, Cohen.
Oh my God.
Not CIBC, anybody who does it. And sell about, wait, our balance only 15, sell it for that? Piss on them. You should not do it. And since most people don't sue when that happens because they're so distraught, they kind of let it go. But if
Yes.
certain people were to sue under those conditions, they might find when it gets to a court of law, the judge might be somebody who's totally pissed with that lack of discretion and exercising
Yes.
one's fiduciary responsibility. Was I okay?
Yes, quite eloquent. You said.
Okay.
Now, everything you said was the truth.
I hope so. And I hope that anybody with such a power, institution for that matter, will not do that to regular folks. Do that to rich people if you feel an itch to do it, but not to whom? Us, them, correct? Like
Yes.
regular, poor, hardworking people. Okay. Do it to Brentham. But we don't do it to Brentham. We always let them go who could afford it. We always do it to people who can't afford it. How come? I don't know. It's another issue. All right, keep going. Power.
Power to compound liabilities and settle claims. Power
Yes.
of maintenance. Power of advancement. Power to concur with others. Power to employ agents. Power to apply to the court.
Thank you very much, Georgette, for introducing us to all these powers. If you don't know yet, these powers, this list is not exhausted. These are just some of the key powers. There are many other powers that trustees have. Just like, and remember again, financial institutions oftentimes find themselves in positions of constructive trustees in the case of repossessions. Okay, you can't repossess somebody's property and just throw it down somewhere and mistreat it. They could come back and sue you for being in breach of trust, because by repossession, you become a constructive trustee by saying, because you took it over, you have a duty of care to make sure the asset is maintained properly until it is what?
Sold.
Absolutely. The problem is a lot of constructive trustees like financial institutions and others get away with it because the people they beat to death are just poor, lowly people who don't have information or money to get Wayne Monroe and whatever. Unfortunately. I just thought and so that you could see that your academic pursuits in studying trust management administration are not in vain. They do have personal benefit outside of the world of trusteeship. That's really the point I'm making. All right, thank you, Georgette, for unruffling all that. If it wasn't for you, some of that may have not have come up. All right. Mackenzie, how do you pronounce your first name?
Shadell.
Shadell. Okay, let it rip within.
Hey. Within a trustee's fiduciary power is the duty to consider whether to distribute income or capital, although he is not under a duty to actually distribute. Turner versus Turner, 1984. Generally, a trustee must consider whether and how he ought to exercise his fiduciary power as stipulated in the case of Matoy Pensions Trustees versus Evans, 1991.
Now, let me just say this. 1991, I'm sorry. I had to pause for a moment. That is a very significant year.
Oh.
Well, 1991 was the year that my first son was born. That's the year that I became a father for the first time. And I have not recovered from it yet. Can I say you guys?
Good or bad thing?
Oh, when he coming for you again, he can warn you again, go in. He can warn you right now.
I'll show you guys that next week. Yeah, but that was the year that my first son was born. The first love of my life. I have another born a couple of years later, the other love of my life. I haven't gotten over it yet. And they're men. And so I'm trying to get over them.
Oh, wow. That's special.
Yeah, it is. So when I see 1991 here or 1997 somewhere else, I'm like, man, it always gets my attention, even though it's not relevant to what I'm doing, like in this case. Sorry, I didn't throw that in there. Okay, now let me just say this.
Yes.
A lot of people believe that trustees must distribute income or capital. Did you have any discussions on income and capital prior to now?
Briefly.
Just briefly. Well,
Yeah,
that's okay, because you're gonna come into contact with it again in the future as well. But trustee income is any money that the trust makes from investing trust property. How's that, to put it simply? It's not that simple. There's other crap, but that's for starters.
Okay, say that again, please.
Trustees earn income for the trust by investing trust property. For example, if the
Okay.
trust has $50 million in cash, it will put it on an account somewhere or invest it in safe government securities so it can earn interest for the trust. Do you follow?
Okay,
And
so
that's how
what is the
income is
capital?
earned for trusts. Capital is usually the original investment that the settlor
Right.
establishes
Okay.
the trust with. Okay? So one is a moment in time and one is generated over time. Make sense?
Okay.
All right.
Good.
So the trustee is not actually under duty to distribute unless, of course, the trust instrument says what? Distribute by or else. See my point? If it's in his discretion, he doesn't have to distribute anything and nobody can do him nothing legally. Did you know that? If the instrument says send 10,000 to my wife and you don't, you're in trouble. You're in breach of trust. Send 50,000 to my bestest girl in Argentina. I say, what the hell, you have a woman in Argentina? I ain't sending that. You're in breach of trust. If it's in the instrument, but if it's not, then you have discretion and you may not distribute anything. Just let it sit until the beneficiaries get pissed and start wondering why
What
they're
you
not
doing?
getting anything. Then they're gonna come to you and say, "Why am I getting?" And then say, "My discretion, I'm not ashamed." They said, "Really, you bastard?" Then they go get not being this time to seal and start and sue. You follow? Okay, keep going.
Oh, where am I? Sorry.
Under trust law,
Under trust law, a trustee is mandated to exercise his powers to distribute trust property in accordance with the provisions of the trust instrument.
instrument, yes, keep going.
As a
Corollary, corollary,
as a corollary of this principle, the
corollary
discretion
means
to
extension.
say it again.
Corollary means extension, as an extension to this principle.
As a corollary of this principle, the discretion to exercise such powers must be done honestly, fairly, and in good faith.
See those things again, they come up again. I wonder why. They come up again. Okay, keep going.
The trustee must always keep in mind the goals of the trustee, which are primarily to protect and preserve trust property on behalf of the beneficiaries.
P&P again, remember? P&P. What does P&P mean?
Protection,
Preserve.
preserve, and
Protect
protection.
and preserve, absolutely. All right, keep going.
Once the trustee acts in good faith in exercising his powers of discretion regarding the distribution of trust property, he will be protected by law, particularly if he has done so according to the terms of the trust instrument and as permitted by law.
Absolutely. So the whole idea is for a trustee, don't sweat it. Make your money the right way, honestly. Follow the rules. You don't have any problems. The only problem with us as people, after a while, we get bored with the rules, apparently, or we get greedy, or we get self-serving. Keep going.
The Trustee Act 1998 gives trustees the power to insure themselves and their employees against personal liability and pay insurance premiums from the trust fund except for breach of trust.
A point to be made here. Trustees do have the right under our act, that's how liberal it is, to purchase indemnity insurance for the trustee and his employees. If the trustee, if a case is brought against the trustee and the trustee loses the case and the case is not a case of breach of trust, then the trustee may pay the money out of the trustee fund rather than the trustee's profits. Does that make sense? If indeed it is found that the trustee was in breach of trust, then no matter what insurance he has, he is not allowed to pay out of the trust funds. He must
Yeah.
pay from his own profits that he makes from being trustee. Make sense?
Mhm.
Absolutely. In other words, doing the wrong thing doesn't help, even when it comes to insurance liability. Keep going.
Additional powers conferred by sections 14 to 31 of the Trustee Act 1998, unless some contrary provision exists in the trust instrument. The trustee's powers may be restricted or increased by the provisions of the trust instrument.
Indeed.
Notwithstanding this fact and the fact that a trustee's power may be expanded by the Trustee Act 1998 and the Trustee Amendment Act 2011, a trustee should ensure that the trust instrument provides sufficiently for his powers so that he is able to discharge his duties and responsibilities efficiently and effectively.
In other words, before you take on the job of trustee, don't just say, just look at the money. Read the document, make sure it has all the key things like fees and certain other things in there. Have your lawyer look at it. You guys have coffee over it, whatever it takes to make sure that document is a document you can live with as a trustee. Because once you sign it, dog eat your lunch if you try to violate it. Do you understand? All right, keep going.
More specifically, trustees have the full powers of the individual beneficial owners absolutely entitled, where they hold real property, and also have the power to borrow trust funds in certain specified circumstances.
Which we'll talk about later. But again, these have to be under very special conditions. All right, and then finally, go ahead.
The trustee's power of discretion may be used in many ways to protect the beneficiary, including the power to withhold income payments to the beneficiary and apply these payments otherwise, particularly where such payments may be claimed by the beneficiary's creditors.
What does that mean?
A trust
Sorry, what does that little passage mean? That the trustee can help the beneficiary by diverting the money from the beneficiary to any creditors. What do you think that means?
And pay his bills. I don't know if he owed.
Yeah, yes, of course. Not all beneficiaries are responsible. Some of them waste money like water, don't they? Especially if they know that every year money is coming until they drop dead or until some fixed period. So some beneficiaries, because of their irresponsibility, creditors might contact the trustee and say, this guy owes me $15,000. So a trustee with discretion will say to the beneficiary, Tom, instead of sending you the money this year, I'm sending it to your creditor.
creditors.
Now, Tom may not be happy with that, say, you try it, I'll sue you, boy. And then he says, sue me, because the trustee feels that in his discretion, that's a good decision. And it's hard for a court to see otherwise. Do you follow? So you see a lot of things happen on the outskirts of just the normal day-to-day stuff. Send money to my designated beneficiaries. That's the easy part. Other than that, all hell breaks loose from all directions, all day, every day, indefinitely, as long as there is a trust in place. All right, and then finally, John.
Go ahead. A trustee may also make distributions to the beneficiary under certain conditions in order to protect the trust property from being dissipated.
Indeed. So if you have a spendthrift beneficiary who's just wasting money, then the trustee needs to do something. And that is to maybe take action to divert the money, not make a distribution, especially that distribution is going to cause the trust money to go low in a year when they need to wait until it builds up, and all kinds of little things are happening within that trust arrangement. So the trustee's job, when they make the money they make, it doesn't necessarily come easy, depending on the nature and type of trust. That is why when it's time for them to collect trustee fees, they don't hear any horse dead and cow fat from anybody, because it's a very complex bit of work depending on what type of trustee you are and what assets are left in your trust. All right, thank you very much, Chandel, is it? Did I say that right, Chandel? Okay, last but not least, Leslie, why don't you close us out for the evening by reading the last bit of information under powers and duties. What are we, by the way, at this stage? Are we still discussing powers, or are we talking duties again? Still powers. That's my whole point. Like, don't drift off. Are we in duties now again? No, we're not.
Still powers.
Yeah, we're still talking powers. Okay? All right, Leslie, let it rip. Take the ship in so that we can all leave this bloody screen and have a match.
Okay, trustee minutes are often used to document the reasons and discussions made by a trust committee for a professional trustee's discretion in the exercise of its discretionary powers. These minutes are protected from disclosure under the Trustee Act 1998, as they are not considered trust property subject to the beneficiary's right to information and access.
Now stick a pin, Leslie, hold that thought. This is very important. Whenever in a professional trusteeship arrangement, they usually have a trust committee that sits down to make decisions about who gets what, when, and why. Those decisions and discussions are put into the minutes like any other board meeting. And this information and committee documents are privileged. They are not, they are protected by the Trustee Act 1998, and beneficiaries have no right to that information. The reason why beneficiaries like to know what's in these minutes is because minutes have very personal information about what went on in the meeting. You understand? So if somebody said, I think that stinking beneficiary name, Anishka, you have to put it in the minutes. Do you know that? That's why a lot of times companies don't like to disclose minutes. Or a lot of times they leave stuff out the minutes that they should put in because they don't want anybody to know what they were discussing. So if they want to hide something, they wait, don't put that in the minutes. This is off the record. Yeah, IT fit, so what? Now we could go on with the meeting. They kind of like that. So trustees, fortunately, do not have to disclose minutes of the meetings of their committees, their decision making, why they made the decision for whom and when, and these rights are protected. Some beneficiaries know that they're protected, but some of them get so agitated from time to time, they don't care if it's in the Trustee Act. They say, you know what? The courts override any act. And sometimes they still sue and say, we have a right to this information. As a matter of fact, there was a case in the UK not too long ago where a beneficiary brought action against a Bahamian trust, and the courts ruled that the Bahamian trust has to disclose the information. Because under the Trustee Act, we were hiding, but not hiding. We were using our Trustee Act from 1998 to say, hey, under the Act, we don't have to disclose this information. But the courts overruled the Act and said, you have to disclose it. So God forbid, hopefully there's nothing terrible to be disclosed. All right, keep going.
With regard to the delegation of trustee powers, general principle is that a trustee cannot delegate his power as to whom and to what extent trust property may be distributed. However, a trustee may delegate certain duties and tasks in the administration of the trust that may contribute to the exercise of a trustee's powers in the distribution of trust property.
In other words, he can get advice from any professional, any source, anywhere. He can get it anywhere. But at the end of the day, the final decision will be trustees. Period. All right, keep going.
A trustee's power or discretion must be a positive mental act and must not result from his omission or inaction. Additionally, trustees are not compelled to give reasons for the decisions, particularly to the beneficiaries. A trustee must take particular care that his powers are exercised honestly, otherwise any dishonest or improper exercise of his powers will invalidate it, and any distribution made to the beneficiaries dependent upon the facts in every case.
Yeah. So if something comes up, not only will the trust be invalidated with everything distributed, you have to go back and get it. Imagine that. So you find all those beneficiaries who may spend it anyway, or say, man, I don't have it. But the requirement is that you have to go and get all distributions because the court has ruled that this bloody trust is invalid in the first place. Imagine what a nightmare that could be. All right, keep going.
So if it's spent, the trust company will have to pay it back, or the trustee?
Potentially, if you cannot get it from the beneficiaries. It might end up where the trustee has to end up out of his own profits covering the money that was paid to beneficiary that can no longer be recovered if it is determined that it cannot be recovered. Absolutely, that is a possibility. Okay?
Okay.
All right, keep going.
Equally important is the fact that trustees must exercise their discretion within a reasonable time, which again depends upon the facts of every case.
Yes.
Other circumstances regarding the time and type of the exercise of the power of discretion may determine whether it will be validated or not.
Indeed. And finally,
The exercise of a trustee's discretion must be done fairly and independently, and a trustee must not be seen as a nominee of the settler or a puppet on a string.
I'm sorry, Leslie, I can't help it. Does everybody get that? You cannot be seen as a nominee. Nominee means that you cannot
Yeah.
be acting on behalf of no settler, but I'm the settler's
Yeah.
nominee and everything. Hell no. And worse,
Yeah,
you
it's a
cannot, as a
shame.
trustee, be seen as a puppet for the bloody settler.
Mhm.
That's a quick way to come up with a sham trust and an invalidation. Doggone puppet. Many trustees are puppets, especially under modern trust law for settlers.
Yeah.
They deny it, but in truth, if you
Yeah.
suspect their behavior, they are capital P puppets. Sorry. Man.
You didn't do good tonight.
No. Somewhere between CIBC and a property thing, puppet thing, man. I don't know. I must be check with my doctor before I do these classes. Okay, it's so because the reason why I can help is because I've seen so much of it in practice and back in the day when I used to do crap here and there, and I see it all the time here and there in other places, and yeah. Okay, keep going.
Trustee act solely and exclusively by the instructions of the settler and not act independently, the trust may be declared a sham.
Yes.
All jurisdictions, particularly in instances where revocable settler very wide powers to control and dictate the trustees and the trust.
Thank you very much, Leslie. I was hoping that I could end the evening on a quieter note, and here's what you said. Especially where revocable trusts exist, and many of them do exist in the Commonwealth, in the Caribbean, and many offshore jurisdictions, and give the settler wide powers to control and dictate the trustees and the trust. Clear puppet action.
Yeah.
But nobody has the nerve or desire to turn them in because these trustees are making huge amounts of money. People work there. Nobody wants to blow the whistle. Everybody's making money. Money, 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 money. And wherever there's money, there's a great reluctance to do the right thing.
Oh, gosh.
Especially if the right thing is going to interfere with our money. Our money.
Mr. Wilkinson, is this class 2 hours or 3 hours?
Kiss my foot. What made you think of that?
Because all the other classes were 2 hours.
They were 2 hours?
Yeah, and I...
Kiss my foot.
The class is supposed to be 3 hours. At least when they sign up, I know they told us it's 3 hours.
Yeah, it's supposed
Oh, okay. 3 hours.
But-
Okay.
now, don't get me
Okay.
wrong, because I kind of like roll right into 9, that doesn't mean like next week, depending on when we get done, we might be done before.
No, I'm only asking so I could budget my time properly.
In
That's
terms
it.
of budget, 3 hours.
Okay.
Okay? But
Okay.
if I say we're done before 3 hours, it's okay.
That's fine.
Yeah, because I'll just work it back and forth depending on what we've done, what we have to cover. But yeah, for
That's-
budget purposes, 3 hours.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to stop there tonight. Thank you guys. You've been absolutely great. I think
Great,
we kind of exhausted the duties and powers thing until next time when you get into some more of that stuff later on. When we come next week, we'll cover the appointment of the trustee. If I don't start there for some reason, because I'm already have a mindset that I'm moving forward. Remind me, excuse me, what about the appointment thing? So we'll do that and then we'll
Then
move
she'll do it.
the next delegation thing. So we move on to the next unit, which is what again?
That's appointing name.
No,
Appointment of
appointment.
trustees.
After appointment.
After appointment of trustees is trustee remuneration.
Okay, so yeah, we'll do the appointment first, and time permitting, we'll move it to remuneration. Okay, so
So in your lesson, you don't have appointment of trustees for us at all then?
no.
Oh,
Yeah, that's what I was
I'm
asking.
going to
Who's
do
doing
is-
that?
Yeah, I'm gonna go back anyway. Since you guys didn't do that in your first sessions, I'll put it. We'll go over that first next week, and then we'll move into remuneration. How's that?
Okay.
Okay, wonderful. Now, if you hear me starting with remuneration, like give me a funny look, like, excuse me, remuneration, or the other promise, and then we'll do that. All right. So you
Mr.
guys,
Wilkinson, why did Dal Regis resign? This have nothing to do with trust. Why she resign? Do you know?
I'm glad you asked me something that's not to do with trust. Remember, I told you already. This class is a dynamic one. Anything goes here.
No, I don't want to keep everyone. I just asked if you knew, Jen, if you had any idea why she retired, she is leaving.
Well, I shouldn't say just like crooked trustees. I shouldn't say that. Because that would suggest that she did something wrong. As far as I know, she didn't do anything wrong. If she resigned, something went down, which we don't have the details of yet. Which
I
we
just
might,
saw that post. Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because maybe,
Well, she's about to.
yeah,
I
because
guess.
maybe the kitchen is getting a little hot with this 124 now.
Maybe she's was recommending something they don't want to go with, and she don't want to take
Of
responsibility
course,
for
and
it.
then cases are now what? Increasing.
Yes, multiplying.
Plus, there
seem
may be
like.
some other politics going on, other COVID. Just
that
like,
we don't know. That we don't know.
just like Dwayne, who is a doctor, who brought in people who bring medicine,
Yes.
still harass him for some reason. So we don't really know, but it is startling.
Yes, it is.
So not
It doesn't look good.
no.
It doesn't look good.
The reason why it doesn't look good is now we have 2 persons.
Yes.
Extraordinary medical.
In a time like this.
Why the hell would something happen for those 2? Why couldn't it be Tingham and Tingham them? And
I can't take it.
Regis, I don't get it.
Oh, she's very good.
Trusty somewhere, but that does leave food for thought.
Thought.
All right.
Thought.
So we'll say that, and while we wait for an explanation, God forbid if we're ever going to get one, please stay away from COVID and come back next week in one piece. How's that?
Yes, Lord willing.
Wonderful.
Yes.
You guys take care.
Take care, everyone.
Next week.
Good night, everyone.
Good
Be
night.
safe.
Okay, good
Good night,
night.
everyone.
Take care.
Good night.
Hey, Cohen.
What's your cell phone number?
My cell phone number?
556-2100.
Is it?
552-2100.
No, 556-2100.
Okay.
Okay. So
Right.
We already got yours. We got yours.
Wonderful.
Mr. Wilkinson.
So you know how to reach me if you need to reach me.
Yes, sir.
Anybody who finds out, whoever finds out first, while the Regis resign, please send me.
Rodney, watch the show tomorrow.
We depending on you to find that out now.
The women there will ask Rodney.
Find out. I'm sure he knows. Okay?
Yes.
Take care.
Yes, yes.
Bye.
Okay,
Ms.
take care.
Wilkinson, hello?
Hi.
Hi, before you sign off, are any of you interested in joining a group chat? We can study and bounce off ideas from each other?
Yes.
Well, you have my number, eh?
Problem with that.
No, what's,
You guys have my
so
number?
wait, and I have a Nishka number. What's your number?
My number?
No, the other lady.
Who's the other lady?
Oh, Shadell?
I see to say Galaxy A20 on the screen. I don't know who that is.
Oh, that's Shadell. That's Shadell.
Okay.
No?
That's Shadell McKenzie, 466-5012.
Okay, 466-5012.
Spell your name, Chevelle.
SHEDELL,
Okay, great.
466.
5012.
5012.
Okay.
Anybody else?
502.
Leslie, do we have your number?
Leslie on mute. Mr. Wilkinson, are we using the same Zoom details for next week?
I believe we are, but Miguel will send you the information in any event.
Okay.
He normally sends.
Before you go, sorry.
Go ahead.
Before you go, I noticed this is recording. Where would we find a recording of it?
Doggone it. Good question. It's somewhere. Ask Miguel. He has that information.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah,
No problem.
guy that tucks all this stuff somewhere. Just send him
Right.
an email or something or text and say, where can I find the recording?
Okay.
Tell you exactly where to go.
Thank you.
All
All
righty.
right. So have a great week and I'll
Have
see
a
you
good night,
soon.
everyone.
Good night,
Yes, everyone have a good one.
And be safe.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I'm waiting for the
Paramount.
diabetes update, please.
Yes, yes.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, good night.
Good night.
Bye. Well, how do you leave this thing?
Click leave.
I'm looking for
I know. I'm just teasing.
Good night, sir.
Good night.
All right.
Bye-bye. Del Regis resigned.